come up when I'm at the bar. Other people wanna try, it's like, give me some more. Try a little harder, honey, like, give me some more. Let's go, I'm a superstar. Getting busy with the boys, hanging at the bar. Everybody coming close, cause they all want me. You want it when you saw me. I like how you look, baby, call me, call me. 1, 2, 3, 4, then you scream if you want some more. Like, push it, watch me work it. I'm perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, then you scream if you want some more. Like, push it, watch me work it. I'm perfect, I'm perfect. Check it out now. Perfection.
All right. Probably need to unmute on Discord as well. All right, welcome everybody. Welcome. So we'll do a sound check here in a second to make sure you guys can hear him, but I am lucky to have, I'm almost always terrified to try to pronounce your name because I feel like my brain just can't do it, but Fejau, or how did you say it earlier, brother? I'm so sorry.
Fejau.
God damn it.
That's all good.
I've said that in my head every time I read a tweet from you or like a Discord message or whatever. I read it in my head that way, so I need to like reprogram my brain.
That's all good.
Thanks for coming on, man. For those of you guys that don't know him, I don't know actually how many cycles you've been around for. I definitely noticed you in the 2021 cycle for the first time. Like Doc's writing Fejau. Yeah, there you go. That's how I'm gonna reword in my brain to be written like that. But so yeah, he's got a polar opposite approach to me, so this should be a very interesting topic today because we definitely see things in a different way, but I think we kind of have the same conclusion about where things are headed right now, sadly. So I don't know, you have like a quick TLDR of your background to share with them real quick?
Yeah, totally. We have a different approach to markets, but I do want to say that I've been in crypto market since about 2018, and I actually like went through the whole Paragon education program and did all that because I wanted to improve on my short like low time frame market trading and that sort of thing. So um, I did do the education there and really enjoyed what you and Charlie do. I am mostly macro focused. I run a podcast called Forward Guidance on the Blockworks Network, which is mostly macro. But yeah, my style of trading and investing is definitely more of like medium time frame. Even though I did do all the order flow, low time frame education stuff that you do a really great job of educating. So yeah, I've been doing that since about 2018, and basically I overlay my macro view and express it in crypto. I find that there's a lot of edge and opportunity to do that in this market, as opposed to TradFi, where like years ago I was trying and not really succeeding at things like options trading, multi-leg options trading in TradFi, and was just getting absolutely steamrolled because you're going against the smartest people in the world, and there's a lot of smart counterparties in crypto, but overall I feel like there's more edge. So generally speaking, just apply that. So yeah, I I kind of combined a few different schools of thinking, but you know, the low time frame is definitely aligned with a lot of what you do. So I think we can jump around from, you know, high time frame expressions of macro into crypto, and then also looking at how I view things on that short term horizon. So yeah, should be a fun chat.
Yeah, with the short term stuff, you know, especially like in a regime right now, I think that you either want to be super high time frame or super low time frame. Anything in the middle right now is going to be kind of just a lot of round trip pain for most people. So yeah, I've definitely moved towards like a bigger picture approach. I mean, I think that the longer you trade, the more you kind of have to shift towards, you know, portfolio management and just like rather than like, you know, entry stopwatch trades. A lot of the stuff is like a lot of my volume is actually like defensive trades and stuff, which is kind of surprising to people. I think a lot of the time, like, you know, my biggest perp trades are hedges these days, which is super boring, but it is what it is, you know.
I
So
mean, that
yeah.
brings up such a yeah, it brings up such a good point that like a big belief I have is that um, returns are easy to get in crypto. The hard part is keeping them. So, so much of my focus just is on like sizing and risk management because everything else comes pretty naturally if you just are here long enough. And then you look at like some of the veterans, and you know they've blown up and then come back. So, you know, if you can just protect your downside, the good times will come to you naturally. I think.
Yeah, wait. Like anybody that's been around the block for a minute always just rants and rants about the survivorship argument, right? Like that if you can just survive in crypto through the hard periods, you'll eventually, you know, through hard work and some preparation, you will get lucky one day and make some money. And then yeah, the hardest thing for all of us is that you will make the money and then it goes poof out of nowhere. You know, things change, a couple of bad weeks come through and it's all gone. So I mean, yeah, I definitely have. I don't think that it's like a badge of honor blowing up the way that we kind of talk about it on Twitter per se, but I definitely have had complete wipeouts. I think the best one that I always talk about is March 13th, 2020. I lost about 65% of my money. I even hedged going into that too, so it was just like I just mistraded it, and yeah, I lost well over half of my entire net worth in about 12 hours. So it's just as long as you can survive those moments, though, I mean, then, you know,
Yeah,
crypto gave such incredible opportunities just, you know, what, like 6 months to a year later. So it
yeah.
sucked. And I definitely was wondering if I'm an idiot. And, you know, I quit, you know, the cherry on the top is I quit my professional corporate job 2 months before that, or actually a month before that, I think. So definitely was stuck wondering if I'm an idiot if I just quit my job to go gamble professionally and then lost all my money. So the
Yeah.
moral of the story, though, guys, is that a lot of you can go through some pretty fucking terrible times, and still kind of make it out the other end.
Yeah, totally. I think on that point too, like, you know, you can prepare for these downturns and be like, oh, I'm gonna hedge like that and these sort of ideas. But once things actually start going and you know, like spreads start to blow, like bid ask spreads, things get really, really messy really quick. Like during that time, I remember in 2020, I had some like options trades on as well, and I just you know suddenly the spreads on those on like you know just like index equity like you know like QQQ or SPY ETFs and you know if you're trading like call spreads or something, suddenly there's just like all market makers pulled back, and then suddenly there's just you know no spreads to exist of, and you just get destroyed. So even though you're directionally correct, you still get destroyed just because of like when shit hits the fan, it gets a lot more complicated to manage your risk.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're really rare instances, so it's not like we need to be worried about them all the time. But yeah, it's pretty crazy when, you know, you can have instances where you're right and still get clapped because of how gnarly things get.
Yeah,
I mean, the
yeah,
2022 bear market was a good example of that. I played really good defense along the way, but between, you know, I got hacked on chain, I got FTX stole money from me, and taxes, between all those three events for me, I ended up being down on the year even though I traded it well. So it's just it's wild how, you know, P&L performance and stuff isn't always really directly, you know, there's not like a one-to-one correlation with P&L and performance, which is wild because you would think it
oh
would be
yeah.
one-to-one, but it's not.
100%. Yeah, like yeah, back then, like end of 2021 was, you know, there was starting to be some forward guidance from the Fed saying, hey, you know, we're going to start to think about hiking rates, and you know, because of how much they had pushed themselves into a corner with Q and everything, it took many months for that actually to play out, where they had to basically taper and end QE before they started to even, get to neutral and then start hiking rates. But, directionally, I felt like I was correct on that, and I'd cashed up pretty well into the top, but still like my execution, like if you looked at my directional views, they're pretty on point. But then if you look at my P&L, it probably wasn't as good as you might think if you saw what my calls were on that, which just, lends credence to this idea that yeah, the execution is very hard. That's where a lot of my focus is these days, is like, okay, I understand the macro quite well. I feel like I have an edge there, but I'm trying to work on my execution to actually like make the P&L match that as well.
Yeah, that's yeah, I mean, like the whole dynamic of being right but not making money is one of the hardest things for us. It's so easy to be directionally correct, guys. Like all the viewers, please listen. It's not hard to be directionally correct about up or down most of the time, but when you enter the position, so you're not early or you're not too late or whatever. Like I mean, these little dynamics, that's what makes it very difficult. I mean, the timing, right? I think there's a cliche platitude about that, right? Like that you weren't wrong, you were just early. Like no, motherfucker, you were wrong.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, I would kind of love to maybe have like a layman's conversation around macro, almost for my own benefit, but I think that that would be a great way to kind of talk about it for their sake. I'm not going to come on this stream and pretend that I understand that stuff other than the very, just surface level understanding is what I have. I make the
Mhm.
argument that in in my career in trading crypto, trying to make decisions based off macro has made me I've made far worse decisions. I've round trip P&L so many times and stuff because of macro. So I just kind of trade in a vacuum is what I describe it as, where I try to ignore a lot of that information unless it's really, really key. But having said that, it's pretty clear that as the market matures that we're going to have to care more about these things, right? It's just like the example for like order flow. I mostly look at I look at centralized exchange flow for the most part. As time goes on, I got to pay more and more attention to on-chain. I think the same kind of argument holds up with the macro stuff, where even though I haven't really needed it per se just yet, I think that as time goes on, it's going to become a central talking point for us, right? I mean, do you disagree with that? Feel free to.
No, yeah, I agree. I think high level, yeah. So I can paint a little picture of where things have transpired basically from since we were talking about the end of 2021 on that hiking cycle to where we are today. But I will also say that I feel like a big theme that we're seeing right now in crypto markets is this bifurcation between basically two worlds. You have the Bitcoin world, which is being bid up by Michael Saylor and the ETFs, and just some of these big TradFi allocators that are saying, okay, add a 2% exposure to your Bitcoin holdings, and that's providing this consistent bid, which during downturns is leading to, I feel like, lower volatility, which is why we've had this like multi-month range last year, and it looks like we're building another one right now, and we're not getting these big flushes in Bitcoin that we used to see last cycle. Instead of the 30% nuke, we're just getting these long bleeds as people just get chopped up because you're seeing this lower realized volatility. But then at the same time, we're seeing in the alt complex the exact opposite. So that like native crypto money is just getting destroyed, and we're still seeing those classic downturns during parts of these bull markets where things just get completely destroyed. And that part is actually arguably worse, because typically you see that capital that made some money in Bitcoin start to trickle into higher beta assets, but that there's that brokenness between it, because you have like this TradFi complex now and then this like crypto native complex. So that's making things more complicated. But just time back to the macro situation. So like I said, inflation came roaring at end of 2021, and that led to this stair step of marginally hawkish guidance that led basically to a cascade of the fastest hiking cycle in history. And that obviously had very negative connotations for the crypto market. You had the whole FTX thing. Just as liquidity pulled back, it just showed some of these holds in credit markets, and we just saw this cascading explosion. So that happened, and that took some time to heal. And then through that phase, back in 2022, you'll remember there was a lot of talk about, oh, there's a recession. We're in a recession. We're about to be in a recession. There's 2 quarters of negative GDP growth, in fact. And people said, okay, well, this is just, Biden's lying, and, they're gaslighting us. We're clearly in a recession. But it was actually correct to say that we weren't in a recession. And in fact, one of those quarters has been revised higher now since. So there's only one quarter of negative GDP growth. And most of that was actually just due to net exports. So for those that don't know, like you measure GDP by like consumption, investment, plus government spending, plus net exports. So imports minus exports. And most of the negative growth is actually from that net exports component, which is not very reliable. Like, if you have one of the hottest labor markets in history, which we did have in 2022, at the same time that consumption was super strong, it's just hard to make the argument that we were in a full-on recession. But what happened from then till today, basically, is that we've seen, even though there were hints of slowdown occurring, we saw the fiscal impulse start to take the mantle and take the baton quite significantly. And the way I characterize 2022 to basically today is that we've floated the economy through from just huge amounts of fiscal stimulus. And at the same time, even though we've seen, yes, the highest Fed funds rate in many decades, there's been a lot of offsetting factors that have floated us throughout this phase. And a lot of those are, you often see these acronyms that get thrown around, like reverse repo facility, TGA drawdowns, ATI, which is like activist treasury issuance, and basically just like waiting bills over coupons in terms of treasury issuance, and that has implications on risk assets. So we've gone through these couple of years where even though we've had QT, even though we've had rate hikes, we've seen crypto markets do well. We've seen equity markets at all-time high every day. And I would say on the margin now, we're moving into this phase of marginally lowered fiscal impulse. There's a few different reasons for that. There's, you can point to a lot of the work that, ever since Trump and his administration have come in, there's a lot of talk about cutting deficits and increasing tariffs. Basically, they want to lower the fiscal impulse in a way. So if you have an economy that has been largely floated by government impulse, and then you try to remove that, that will have some slowing effects. Now, the issue is that is looking like it's being offset by what's looking like a fundamental, increase in the economy in terms of like the nuts and bolts of it. So the manufacturing sector, you can make the argument that we've been in a slowdown / recession in the manufacturing sector for a year and a half now. You can measure this if you just look up like PMIs, manufacturing PMIs. It's a diffusion index. So whenever it's below 50, that means it's contracting. So we've been in a contraction for 2 years that just went positive for the first time. So it went above 50 just last week. So you're seeing a lot of signs of the core nuts and bolts starting to increase. You're starting to see an increase in credit growth. What's really interesting is despite equities and everything being at all-time highs, we've actually seen very little lending growth and credit creation. But that's looking like it's starting to change. So you're in this interesting situation where there's a few different moving parts going in different directions, pulling at each other, and there's this tension. And I think that tension is why you're seeing so many risk assets start to be range bound right now. So we're seeing, Bitcoin's been in a multi-month range. We're seeing, equities. So, NASDAQ, QQQ, it's been range bound for the most part. And then the hyper risk assets like alts that just don't have as much of that marginal consistent bid, it's been just absolutely obliterated. So we're in this transition period right now, I think, from a macro perspective, as we shift towards this. This is also coming at a time where, there's been a lot of talk, like I've been ranting a bit this morning about how, there's a lot of talk of, quantitative easing is coming soon. QT is going to end, and then QE is going to start at any moment now. But that's not how they view this. QE is something, and Powell said this in a testimony this morning, it's only something that happens once they're already at the zero lower bound. So when rates are already at zero, and once they're there, if they still need to stimulate, then they look at something like quantitative easing. So where does that all put us? It puts us in this weird tension where the core of the economy is starting to look like it's going to, pick up the slack quite significantly, at a time where liquidity overall is pulling back a little bit. So I feel like that's why we're in this weird world where we're just seeing these range-bound risk assets, basically.
What is going to bring liquidity back to the system? I'm gonna ask a lot of really simple questions for the viewers, and honestly for my own sake too.
Yeah, no worries. What's going to bring it back? So obviously rate cuts, from a global perspective. The thing is, the U.S. economy is just so much stronger than every other country right now. That is what gets reflected in the U.S. dollar. So if you look at Dixie, If you're not too well attuned to foreign exchange currencies, the biggest driver of them are interest rates. And so when you have a country like the US that is doing so much better than every other country, foreign exchange currencies are relative. It's measured relatively, right? So it's the US dollar against something else, or the Dixie is a basket of, so it's the US dollar against a basket of other currencies. So when the US dollar is so much and the US economy is so much stronger than every other currency, you see that be reflected in the Dixies. So all that to say is that, we've had 100 basis points of cuts so far in this cycle, and it's looking like we're pausing out here for the next while. So I don't really see much of a liquidity impulse from the US at the moment. So you need to start to look at other countries and what's going on there. China
Right, I've heard the
is,
emerging markets argument for liquidity as well. So does that tie in?
yeah, a little bit. But again, I don't think it's as much as people hope for.
Yeah.
I'm of the mind that we're in this neutral environment. Basically, if you want the classic version of liquidity to come back, you need a slowing economy. Now, the issue, like I mentioned, is that it looks like the core nuts and bolts of the economy are actually starting to accelerate higher. So that's making odds of rate cuts even lower. So something that we haven't seen this much is, throughout the history of crypto as an asset class, we haven't really been in these regimes where there's just this like traditional strength of the economy. So
Right.
I have a feeling that we're going to see some new correlations take hold in terms of what's there. And so this is ground that I think is new for myself and for many, because we haven't really seen how things like altcoins perform during these types of regimes where there's liquidity that's being pulled back, but the economy doing super well. So that's good for things like, you know, equities that are not tech. So, like the Russell 2000, like the core nuts and bolts of the economy, that's going to be good for them because the economy is growing, lending growth, credit growth is increasing. That's going to be good for their earnings. Now, the question is, does that translate into cryptocurrency assets? To be honest, I don't know yet. We have to see. But overall, I would just characterize the broad regime as being neutral for at least the next 6 months or so.
I would imagine, though, that you kind of agree with the consensus that longer term, the current administration is obviously setting up to be beneficial to the crypto space, right? I mean, do you have any issues with that argument?
No, I don't. It's always so. So this is the other thing. Is that then it starts to become a game of what's price and expectations versus what's actually being realized. So obviously from the election night in November up until the inauguration, we saw a lot of run up based on expectations of very bullish idiosyncratic catalysts that aren't related to the broad liquidity world, not related to the macro world. It's like, okay, we're going to get a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So, as we start to price in that rumor of that potentiality, that's going to lead to a run up in price. And we've seen that. And now you get to this point where, okay, the inauguration has happened. Market was expecting, if we just rewind back to inauguration day, there's expectations of a day one executive order for the Bitcoin reserve, right? That's obviously not happening. So as those positive idiosyncratic tailwinds start to get removed, as expectations start to come lower because it's not really happening like many expected in the market, that has to be pulled out of the market. So you have, the way I overlay this is the broad market, risk on correlations are generally positive. I do think, we will start to break out of this range from like an equity perspective. So that therefore the Bitcoin correlation to QQQs or something like that, that'll take us higher, I think. But at the same time, you have this dislocation in expectations versus reality
Right.
of, high expectations for positive catalysts like the strategic Bitcoin reserve. That's going to take longer to transpire now. They're in this phase of, we've heard like David Sachs, that the cryptos are said they're evaluating it. So we've had to pull out some of these expectations, and that's also been a negative catalyst for
Sure.
crypto prices. So it feels like that's starting to get more in balance now. That dislocation is coming back into equilibrium, which is good. So if that could come back into equilibrium, which I think we're almost there now, at the same time that the broad correlation to risk on assets can grind us higher, I think that can lead to a steady grind higher. So all that to say, I feel like a lot of the downside is complete now because those expectations have come back into equilibrium.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, yeah, I generally agree with the benchmark assets trading up higher, right? But
Yeah.
Treating the alt basket in that same conversation makes no sense. I'm fairly confident that there will be a small basket of altcoins that will do extremely well this year. That seems to be the meta that we've had for 2+ years now. So I do think that we'll return to that. But yeah, I mean, if you were to take the entire market's performance and overlay it on a Bitcoin chart, it's pretty simple how it works. That when you're in the early stages of the range, it's when all the trash beta catches up, and then the longer the range persists, the more the unwind starts to really pick up for all the trash stuff. So that's basically, it's like, I'm almost probably a little bit too late to fully having understood this pattern. I actually was just like drawing diagrams on this recently and stuff, but it's been the same pattern for a while now where, right, like Bitcoin and the couple of strong things expand, and everything else grossly underperforms them. And then once those assets go into consolidation, you see the filth catch up. And people get really stuck in a mindset of thinking like, oh, everything just went up 400% in a month. These things are outperforming. And they're outperforming in that small window of time, but in like the larger spectrum, right? Outside of like something like XRP is one of the only things that traded up during that period and stayed up. Pretty much everything just full retraced their moves. So I think we're in agreement on that. I do believe.
Yeah, I feel like it's better for people to accept what we've had over the last 2 years than to keep hoping for like a broad-based alt season. I think it's just we continue to be in this PvP dynamic, this zero-sum game where it's like if you want some alts to go up, it means other alts have to go down.
They have to go up. At the very least, maybe they go sideways at best case.
Yeah, best case is sideways. And I think, I think a lot of people, and myself included, will do a lot better once we accept that. It's just hard to get like the broad-based, like 2021 style, all, everything going up at once type of idea, unless you just get a ton of capital coming in. But again, like if liquidity is being pulled back and it's more just like the traditional economic fundamentals bringing us higher, yeah, I feel like it's better to just assume more of the same of the last couple of years than this like broad-based everything going up all at once type idea.
Well, I mean, yeah, especially like we just talked about, like the current, the market environment for this cycle is completely different than last cycle and different than the one before that. So yeah, I mean, this is clearly, it's like the perfect combination of left and right curve distribution meme playing out where, you have the quality, like the strong bid in the quality, which is essentially just Bitcoin, and then you have all the dog shit, on the other side. And then basically anything in the middle is just a terrible trade, where it's just like you got to trade the terrible memes or Bitcoin. And then, that's basically the key to success right there. So it's been interesting. I'm curious. You might have an interesting perspective on this. I've been talking about this a little bit for a while now. I used to make fun of all the people that used to talk about we need to return to utility, we need fundamental value, all these kind of things. Back in 2023, 2024, I used to say that that's stupid, just buy memes or whatever, right? But I have had a change of heart more recently where it's just like, I wonder how much further we can go down the financial nihilism arc where we just all collectively agree that it has no value and that the only purpose is to trade it and make more money. I would love to see a new meta where a coin comes in and actually has like a fundamental change and has a real use case and stuff, and then that's what I kind of see us sparking a return to like actual value and utility. One of the ways to explain it was that when I came in to crypto, I came in because of ETH originally. I know a lot of the viewers nowadays look at ETH and they think it's dog shit. ETH was pretty fucking cool back in the day, actually. And I came in, and after markets went down, and I lost a lot of my money, I believed like, oh, these things are going to matter, right? Well, with newer participants, that's probably not really the case, right? Do they really believe in anything outside of Bitcoin? So that just makes it so that the environment is just like much more, predatory and us just shitting on each other, basically. So if we could get a change where something actually came in with real value, it could just change everybody's mindsets towards value again. And basically we could just scam each other into believing that these things have real value because that one chain had value, right? It sounds a little cynical and whatnot, but that's kind of where I think we're at, right? Where we kind of need a little bit of belief in something other than a dog picture,
Totally. Yeah. I feel like there's a few thoughts I have there. One thing, and I'm curious about your thoughts on it as well, is I've been curious to see how those utility coins would start to react in a more regulatory friendly environment like we have now, which is basically,
They did well
when
in
you compare the
December,
last.
that's for sure.
That's so exactly. So, you saw this where, once it became clear that Trump was going to win, a lot of these utility coins got a pretty large bid to them. And it's like, okay, we're seeing that return. So I've been curious to see like how would the market start to react into a world where, yeah, there's actually regulatory, openness towards coins that have a utility towards them. But um, the second question is, okay, how do we define that value, that utility? Is it cash flows? Is it revenue of the protocol? And if you do that, it starts to get a little dicey at the same time because there's always this meme in crypto, which is just like, the reason Dogecoin was able to go up so much last cycle is that there's no way to value it. So it can't be anchored by price to earnings ratios or anything like that. And so if we start to value these projects based on their actual fundamentals, something like, I don't know, Aave or something like that, where you start to value it on like a discounted cash flow basis, that could also be a bad thing because suddenly we're like, oh shit, these
Yeah, we're
things are
capping, we're
extremely
creating caps.
overvalued.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
huge
So it's like,
problem.
okay,
I think that's why people love the idea of the whole Fugazi argument of just like it's a meme, and we don't have a way to value it. It's like the same thing as what you were saying with the Trump rally too, right? I mean, our best rallies are often off the back of what could happen, not what does happen or what will. What does happen and what will happen almost never have the same like carry through as what our imaginations create, right? So we love to
yeah.
just like make up fairy tale endings in our head, and that's what moves markets the most, honestly, in my experience at
Yeah.
least.
So then the question comes up of like, okay, as as participants of this industry, what do we care more about? Having tokens that can go up a lot, or tokens that are tied to anchors of fundamentals that
It'd be
maybe
nice to
won't go up
find a
as
balance
much?
between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. I would hope so. And so, the classic example is like governance coins, right? Is okay, are the reason that most altcoins governance coins because of a regulatory situation? And because, that doesn't really give that much utility. If we remove that and we say, okay, we're going to start to turn on fee switches and that sort of thing, if we start to value those based on those cash flows of that fee switch, what does that do to the price of it? Do we want to bring it down but have a healthier industry, or do we want to keep it high but continue to value these on vaporous things like governance coins or even just meme coins, right? So that's, I think, something that the broad industry needs to try to figure out over the next couple of years, and it's gonna be really interesting to see.
Yeah. No, the point about it being potentially bad is definitely something everyone's aware of. I've definitely heard a lot of people mention that are kind of into the because I don't really, understand the tokenomics Ponzi element behind a lot of these things. I have like a glossary, surface level understanding of how tokenomics work. But yeah, essentially, if you could have some sort of protocol that actually generated money and then use that generated money to buy the token, like because you just because your chain makes money doesn't mean that the token value is going to exist, right? So you need some sort of like like some sort of reason as to why like there's a actual correlation between performance and price, because we've seen that many times over the years. There's been so many coins, right? Like, I was a very early investor in Aave. I actually definitely fumbled tens of millions on Aave by selling it too early, but it's a good example where if you look at it in the bear market, right, the token got obliterated just like anything else when Aave is a legitimate product. I mean, I don't know the numbers or anything. I don't frankly care, but pretty sure they make money and all that kind of stuff. So, but if you go into risk off stage, it doesn't matter, right? Like what kind of value you have behind the token or whatnot. So, I think just
Yeah,
kind of
totally.
finding a balance between the two is the answer, but we need someone much smarter than me to figure that one out because I'm not going to be the guy for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting to see what like Hyperliquid has done so far because that's starting to tick a lot of boxes
Yeah, that's one of
in
the
terms of
things. I'm
like
not
a.
trying to be a hyper liquid chill, but that is one of the things that comes to mind is that they actually have like the buyback programs and like the reason for the token to go up outside of just investor A and B buying it. So I like that.
Yeah, and good tokenomics, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's interesting to, yeah, compare the ones where it's a token that got launched fully unlocked, which is quite rare these days outside of like pump fund meme coins. So it's yeah, it'll be interesting on like a longer term perspective to see how that does versus some of these other L1s where they're pursuing the more traditional approach of like low float, high FDV, and just huge amounts of emissions. So yeah, that'll be an interesting experiment to see play out.
Yeah, I mean, and being in the influencer world a little bit too, and just seeing like, I know you're not supposed to call it the naked emperor or whatever, but I've just seen like the way the tokens get distributed to influencers and stuff, and it's like, well, no fucking wonder that coin can't go up because you guys are paying all these fucking big accounts and they're gonna sell it and make their money or whatever. So it's just like there's a lot of really dumb stuff happening behind the scenes for these projects, and I'm not in the
Oh,
fucking room or anything, but I know people that are, and it's just so dumb everything that's going on.
yeah,
Everyone's so
100%.
short-sighted, right? They want to make their money quick instead of growing something big long
Yeah,
term.
and the major shame right now is that people think that that's not happening in meme coins, but it is.
Oh yeah,
It's
it's
like, oh yeah,
even
we're
worse.
gonna go in meme coins because there's no VCs dumping on us. It's like, well, there's still cold deals and there's still a lot of stuff happening in the background. It's just not as visible, which could be actually
Even if
worse.
you don't cheat and give out information that you shouldn't, just the sniper argument, like I've seen, like I've got cooked by a sniper. I got destroyed by an MEV bot the other day. I got slipped 90 something percent on a trade. So I mean, even if it's not like nefarious where they're passing around information, and you can still end up in the same exact situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's really hard too is like something I thought a lot about is one of the clear use cases and product market fits we found is stablecoins usage. But like a lot of that there hasn't really been opportunities for regular investors to participate in that upside. Obviously, there's been experiments like Luna, and we know how that went. And obviously, there's Athena this cycle, which is cool. That's one way to get exposure to it. But like the broad-based adoption of stablecoins is going to be a clear leader of the industry. But you can't buy USDC and be like, oh yeah, USDC to $2, right? Like there's no direct exposure there. So we have this use case that's obvious, that's clearly going to accelerate in its adoption, but it's very difficult for the broad base of speculators to participate in that upside. So we're more so focused on like speculating on memes and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I love the stablecoin conversation. It doesn't get enough respect in our space because I think, well, frankly, so many people are just so worried about catching that 50x or whatever that it doesn't even occur to them. But if you've been in crypto a long time now, stablecoins are the thing that I think are the best thing that we've done yet. And I only mean Tether and USDC, obviously. Outside of that, I
Mhm.
would not recommend any other coins. But it's been a game changer for me personally to be able to stable coins up and to pay people, right? Like let's say I need to pay my artist for the video he just made me, right? I can just send him some money, some stable coins on Solana, and it's in his wallet immediately. And it costs nothing basically. So that like some of the just like that's a real life application right there that people don't talk about. Stable coins, yeah, I mean, especially for those of you guys that have been around a long time, we used to trade with Bitcoin as our stablecoin equivalent pairing on the trade,
Yeah.
alt against Bitcoin, and that was a absolutely chaotic. I know that all the exchanges like Binance and whatnot loved that. The chaos that created made them so much money probably, but yeah, the stablecoins created so much stability for us personally in our lives, and the ability that you can sell it and protect yourself and stuff is, yeah, it's a big game changer. I don't understand the institutional side of it or big picture or anything, but I do feel like that makes sense that would matter to, you know, the big boys as well, right? It's like it has an actual use case for deploying capital quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, yeah, and just like globally, like there's a lot of people that have trouble in the world that have trouble to get access to US dollars, and this
Yeah,
makes it instant and global. And that, yeah, is highly underrated because we all live in, even though I'm Canadian, like I'm still within the complex of the world where it's very easy to get US dollar access, but that's not the case for a lot of the world, and so that part gets missed a lot. But yeah, overall, like there has been useful product market fit innovations in crypto. It's just I think it's been hard for the average person to get exposure to that upside.
it ultimately comes down to that diagram. I don't know who originally invented it. This probably predates both of us by a ton, but there's this little diagram about how technology goes up in a straight line over time, and then our expectations just exceed and then like are underwhelming, right? And then like I don't know if you can see the stream or not, but this is like
Yep.
our perception is like it's so much worse than it really is. It's so much better than it really is, and the whole time it's just slowly going up, getting better steadily. But our emotions make us swing on either end to make it seem
Yeah.
like it's so much worse or so much better than it really is. And in
Yeah.
my time in crypto, this basically summarizes my entire experience in crypto right there.
Yeah.
Somebody made
Same.
that up a long time ago with regular markets. I don't know who did that though.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
I was trying to read chat, but honestly, most of what I saw in the chat was just people crying. So we're gonna go ahead and ignore you. Come on, guys, like take a breather.
Take a breather. We're range bound.
Wouldn't
I
the
mean,
U.S. be incentivized to support stablecoins? I'm not like gonna sit here and pretend like I understand, but yeah, it makes sense to me that they would want the dollar to be the native currency for stablecoins, right? Because that helps, the dollar. It's
yeah, I think there's been a big shift in how the U.S. government views stablecoins. Where at first it was like, oh God, like this is trying to pull away from U.S. dollar hegemony, but now they're realizing that it's the opposite, and I think that's why you're seeing such like bipartisan support of stablecoins, and also like huge, support by this Trump administration, where they're really focusing on stablecoins. It's like, okay, this is actually a way to perpetuate the U.S. dollar
yeah, which
reserve
is a
currency
huge goal for the
hegemony.
U.S. It's like
Yeah,
probably one of the number
and
one
then
goals.
yeah, and then like tying back to a little bit of the macro stuff, like one of the big questions these days is who's going to buy up all the debt, and one of the fastest growing marginal buyers of debt are stablecoin companies like Tether. So there's a lot of reasons for it to be a very positive dynamic for the U.S.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like for a long time, all the arguments against it were so that it was just like anti-money laundering and terrorism was the main criticism that I would hear, people yapping about. And I mean, yeah, it's pretty obvious that that's not a real concern because every currency can be used for that kind of stuff, right? I mean, I don't really understand that value or that
Yeah.
argument. Um,
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about this range that we're in with Bitcoin right now. Not like I,
okay.
I haven't listened to your recent stream, so I'm curious, like, when do you think we break out of it and in which direction?
So my rule set for ranges is that they always are either much shorter than you expect or much longer. So this range I actually called wrong because I thought it would be a short range, and it's obviously proven to be a long range. So like the summertime range, I was fully ready for being much longer than anybody would expect. This winter range I thought would be short, and I thought we were just going to honestly teleport out here pretty quickly. It turns out that the market was maybe a little too hot on all of our expectations and stuff, and I had to pivot a couple of weeks ago and start playing defense. My
Yeah.
thought is I can't. I feel like I can't tell anybody when it's going to break out of the range because it's just I don't think that's the kind of thing that really anybody has the ability to predict. I can tell you when it's going to start to range with like confidence, but when it breaking out of the range is so much harder. So I think that we're going to play out similarly to the summertime range, but bleed less because the consensus argument is that the market's either over or that we're just going to go down a lot. And for all the people that are crying in the chat, like I'm telling you, I'm still very confident that the macro cycle is not over and that at least the large assets are going to make new highs. So the conversation most of you guys care about is when do we bet again? So you don't bet now at 59K, right? You either need to bet lower, meaning 91 to 88 ish, or you want to bet higher on reclaims. So that's basically the simple argument I have is I changed my portfolio makeup recently, or maybe a little bit longer than recently, to be lower risk with all the alts that I hold, and I'm hedged across the board as well. So I have that super confident that we're going to trade higher thesis, but ranges have taught me that just because my thesis could be right doesn't mean that I need to hold on the risk the whole time and just bleed out 50% in the time being. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I missed anything in your question about like timing or levels or anything like that, but that's like pretty much it, I think.
Yeah. No, that makes sense because it's funny to look at these ranges because, we were both trading last cycle, and during last cycle, I would have expected us to say during this range right now have broken down to like I'm just looking at your chart right now, like 76,000 or something, right? Like just one huge cascade down and then a little bit of chop and then slowly reclaim it. just because we're in a world of higher vol and less liquidity in crypto markets. So, you didn't have the ETFs bidding, you didn't have those sort of dynamics. So instead, what we get is these long extended ranges, but we don't get those like downside resolutions like we've gotten in most altcoins, right? Like they've all broken down. But in Bitcoin, we're not getting that. So instead, we just get these long ranges, and I don't, I don't know. Like I don't know which one I prefer more. It would almost be nice to just tag 76 and get it over with and resolve, but instead we're just getting these long extended ranges.
I definitely agree with the sentiment that the old days of pull the band-aid off and just fucking run it back was easier to trade, and it required a lot less patience.
Hmm.
But ultimately, with this specific conversation, this is so it's the Pandora's box has been opened, and the market's going to continue to mature at some sort of rate. So being increasingly more liquid and thus less volatile is basically inevitable, and it's kind of outside of our control at this point. So I think yeah, just being like starting to adapt to lower volatility and less downside. And if you ever get a massive downside move, if you were to compare the opportunity of a massive downside move today versus a massive downside move 3-4 years ago, maybe a massive downside move has more value to bid nowadays, because the likelihood
Hmm.
of getting that is so much less. But yeah, it's ultimately just not something that we have control over, and yeah, Bitcoin's gonna get more and more boring. And unless something major changes on the like larger scope of things, like let's say like the U.S. all of a sudden pivoted to being anti-crypto, well then maybe the rate of maturing would slow down. But as it stands now, we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing. It seems getting
Yeah.
slowly more and more boring.
Yeah, I don't know if people will like this, but this is sort of what a super cycle almost looks like. Like, so the definition of super cycle gets thrown a lot. It actually comes from commodities originally, and it has to do with just basically like very long term. Basically you have like cyclical cycles and then like a secular cycle, and commodities are traditionally mean reverting because as the price goes up, more supply comes online, that can meet that demand. And then as that occurs, the demand supply gets back into equilibrium, which then brings price back down. Um, so that can lead to like these 10-year spans of like a continued bull market. But that doesn't mean that, when people use the word super cycle in crypto, they think, okay, we're never going down again, and we're just going to go up in a straight line. But this idea of lower realized volatility, and instead of getting these negative 30% bleeds and nukes in Bitcoin, instead we just get these long extended ranges of accumulation and just coins changing hands. And then the next leg higher, like if we just keep, I would say my base case is that what we've seen in the last 2 years is probably what's going to continue for the next five, would be my guess.
Yeah, and to stop everybody from panicking when we say it's going to be boring, I would make the argument that what we're talking about is just for Bitcoin essentially, and maybe a couple other things that are really large, and cemented. But we're still going to have alts that will do wild stuff probably, unless there's like a
Oh
regulatory
yeah.
change to where those things are illegal or something like that, right? Like as long as that we're allowed to keep doing those things, they'll exist. So there's always going to be some dog shit that's going to be going up 1,000x in 2 days. I don't think
Yeah,
that
I
option
think
will
on
go
that point,
away.
yeah, I'll just say that I think it gets underappreciated how much market psychology has changed since 2020. This idea of retail speculation and gambling, and what happened with GameStop and everything. I think there's been a permanent shift in how people view markets that it isn't a phenomenon of macro. It isn't like, okay, rates are low, so people are speculating. Um, I think we've seen, and this has been proven out now, resilient. We've been through a lot of different market regimes, but retail speculation is here permanently. And this perception of markets is here permanently. This idea of speculating on meme coins, I think, is a permanent psychological change in markets. So that idea, I think, is why we'll always have pockets of exciting narratives in alts and memes, because that has changed fundamentally, in my opinion.
That's interesting. Okay. Um, just trying to read through some of the chat. There was a couple of interesting questions that might be worth. Do you have like a TLDR on what your CPI is tomorrow, right? I believe.
Yeah.
You have a
Yeah, I saw
TLDR
that
and
comment.
thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So the big theme right now for CPI and inflation is that over the last year and a half or so, most of the disinflation. So whenever we talk about inflation, it gets really confusing because it's like inflation, deflation, disinflation. The disinflation is just the rate of which prices are increasing slows down. So that's what we've had over the last year and a half is disinflation, mostly from goods, not services. So we've seen a lot of it come down. So oil prices have come down. Like I was talking about earlier, the manufacturing sector has just been stagnant. So with that, goods prices have been disinflating. But the reason why we have sticky high inflation is actually the services sector and specifically shelter and owner's equivalent rent. So these are specific components of CPI that have remained sticky. And what we've seen in recent months is that these have actually finally started to catch up because they're very lagged in how they're calculated. So effectively, what I'm anticipating tomorrow is I think we'll see continued bump upwards in goods inflation. I think that's starting to rebound higher, but I think it's being offset by the services side of things that is accelerating with disinflation lower. So overall, I think that I'm leaning towards a softer than a hotter CPI print tomorrow. Um, and I think a lot of that will come from those core services that'll come lower. And that's going to be really positive, I think, overall. So if you just think about tying that towards how the Fed thinks about it, obviously they have a dual mandate of the unemployment side of things and the inflation side of things. So right now, the reason why they started to cut in August so aggressively is they're concerned about the labor market. We've seen that labor market, basically stabilize. So they're not worried about that anymore. We're not going to get cuts coming because of a a weakening labor market. So it all has to do with CPI again. And then on that side of things, as I said, I think we're going to start to see further disinflation from the shelter components. So I do think overall it's, I would say, weighted towards softer than hotter, but I'm just pulling this out of my ass. I don't do there's some people, some really true macro experts that will actually forecast CPI in specific line items. I don't do that. That's just my simple framework, though, is that I think the core services will accelerate to the downside in terms of disinflation.
Okay. And then I had another segue. So this is an interesting conversation for us to have. I had basically a script for how I traded most every, one of the kind of boomer events, which
Yeah.
I'm comfortable talking about because it doesn't work anymore. So that edge is more or less gone away from me. It still is there a little bit, but it used to be like a fucking copy paste, overlay the schematic on the chart. So basically, every time we'd have a CPI or FOMC, you would have the dynamic where people fucking sell because they're scared, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where that selling isn't really making any downside progress, but a lot of the times they're still selling. The event comes through, regardless of whatever is said, all the hedges get unwound and you go up. So
Yep.
basically, I had to start getting more and more aggressive with my entries to trade that setup where you just had to keep front running the front runners and getting earlier to where there were periods where I would get in position before Powell would speak to take that trade because I had to, because you had to be quick. Like, it was literally like, okay, everybody knows that we're going to go up this week on this event, so I'm going to be in 30 minutes early, and then I'm going to be in an hour early. So I don't really run this setup anymore, but I'm really curious from your perspective if there's anything that conflicts like that from that logic, right? Because for example, there's instances where the information will come in and it's bearish, but will still go up. So
Yeah.
where does that kind of line up in your mind?
Yeah, I totally agree that that has been occurring a lot, especially in it feels like it ended about 6 months ago. So I'm in agreement with you there. I think a lot of that is because we were during big macro inflection points. That's where you get these big changes, and that's also where people become increasingly hedged. So we were at a point there 6 months ago where if we got a soft jobs report, that would instantly lead to higher odds of cuts and increasingly likelihood of it. We're now at a point where the event risk isn't as tangible. If we get a quite a soft CPI tomorrow, that's not going to make it so that they decide to cut in March necessarily. The burden is much higher now, but because the volatility of the inflection isn't as large, people don't have to hedge as much. So I think there's less hedging going on, which means the unwind of those hedges doesn't impact price quite as much. So yeah, I feel like we're at a point now where these economic data points that come out just they don't drive as much of the inflection point nearly. I don't know if that made sense, but
No,
basically
totally.
there's less of a need to hedge, which means the unwind is smaller.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That setup has slowly gotten worse and worse for me every couple of months that goes by. So super comfortable talking about it nowadays because it's not even something I'm gonna
Hmm.
gamble on that much anymore because it just doesn't work. But in like 2022, for example, when we were in the bear market and there was basically nothing to talk about,
Yeah.
everybody was hyper focused on those, and those were like my best trade setups. Basically, was trading the FOMC and the CPI because it would basically give me the similar kind of setup again, and then after that unwind would come through was basically an opportunity to take free shorts too, right? Because everybody lifted the market, closing out their shorts, and now I can sell. So I don't trade
Yeah.
like that at all these
100%.
days, but that was pretty free for a minute.
Yeah, there's great. Like some of those 2022 CPI prints, like the markets have moved so much, and now like I guarantee it. I don't know. It'll move some tomorrow. Obviously, it always does, but not nearly to the degree it was earlier. So, yeah, there's just if I was organized, then I could look at like options data. We can see what the implied move is tomorrow and compare that to CPI prints 2 years ago. But
Which should
I'm
definitely be
lazy. But
less. I want to what
I'm sure it's
extent
like
we're talking about like the market maturing and the liquidity increasing and stuff. That's obviously playing a role in reduced volatility on these events as well, right? If market makers when the CPI comes through, they're not fucking terrified that we're going to nuke 10% and run them over. They're going to be more confident quoting. So that has to be part of it, I would imagine. I don't have any data to back that. It just makes sense to me. But
yeah,
I am a failed market maker. I have tried to, and I got run over too many times, and I said, fuck this shit. So I really understand their perspective. With the main threat that they have is that when the toxic flow comes through and people are just stampeding over one another, if a market maker holds the line during that, that could be lights out for them in one day. So I think that because it's almost like they collectively feel more confident, right? Like if you're a sophisticated market maker, you see the other sophisticated market makers doing their thing. And it's like if I see homie over there is holding the line a little bit today, maybe I feel more confident holding the line because if he dips, then that means I have to, right? So it's like
yeah,
I'm explaining it in a layman's terms, but I think that is got to be playing a role in that stuff. Because
yeah.
for years with crypto, there was no rules for market makers. It was quote what you can quote and survive. Because there's no rules about when they have to quote or when they can't quote or anything like that. They just need to not die. So I wonder too to what extent is the primary Bitcoin market maker not a crypto native person, whereas 4 or 5 years ago it was almost certainly a crypto native person. To what extent is somebody market making on Coinbase, for example? Is that a
Yeah,
suit? It probably is.
yeah, yeah, or even like the options on the ETFs now. Like that is a very different style of market making, right? Like because now you're just, so like we got options on IBIT and that sort of thing. So as that occurs, we got options market makers, which do a lot of very different things because it's a lot more convoluted than just market making spot. Like if you're if retail is buying calls, that means the market maker is selling calls, which means for them to remain delta like neutral, they have to actually buy shares, and then that introduces like I won't get too in the weeds, but that introduces like gamma pinning, where they have to like hedge a certain portion compared to the calls that they're selling, and then they're always trying to even that out, and that just has a completely different effect on short term price action versus the market making of years ago where we didn't have that sophisticatedness of options markets on Bitcoin as well. Obviously there's been Deribit and that sort of thing, but it just hasn't been the size that has been, like short-term equity indexes. The vast majority of short-term price action is derived from options and options flow.
I actually had a question from a student that's relevant to that, so I kind of just remembered to ask it. He asked me, "Can I ask you what makes the options volatility guy?" So I guess there's consensus amongst the guys that trade options vol on Twitter. Basically, the idea is that the structural positioning expectation is telling us downside in February and March, but upside in September and October. I don't know if you pay attention to that kind of stuff or if it's even something you can answer, but I don't know shit about
Well,
that kind of stuff personally.
yeah, I mean, I imagine that's something that like that Marty guy talks about, who is way more sophisticated about options than myself. So I won't pretend to know more than him or anything like that. But it probably has to do with the options expiry. So if those market makers are selling those calls and then a certain portion of them are expiring on a certain date at a certain strike price, that will have implications on where they try to pin price going into those expiries because and that's that gamma pin I talked about. So Yeah, I would say I don't want to get too far over my skis here, and say stuff that I'm not certain on. But overall, that's probably the dynamic that they're talking about.
Yeah, so because crypto options have been or largely irrelevant for a long time, I've just really just been super lazy with taking the time to understand them beyond the surface level. I
Hmm.
mean, I understand the same concepts that everybody else does, but to like actually have that like nuanced understanding, I've been super lazy with it to be honest because I haven't had to, but I definitely can tell that you know if the IBIT options, for example, are successful, it tells us that there's going to be more options that come. And then that just means that we're going to eventually have to pay attention to these kind of things. So, yeah, I think I
Yeah.
probably need to dive into like the S&P side of things to see how that stuff is set up and structured and then try to like overlay how that will work on Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's a can of worms, that's for sure. And it's really like honestly, like I said at the beginning of the stream, like some of the smartest people are in options, and I tried to trade those in my early days and just got absolutely destroyed. So yeah, but I think overall, like a reason for the lower dampening of volatility in Bitcoin could be because of this options dynamic on it, where basically like they have the gamma pinned, and that's why we're ranging. And obviously that can, once we break out, actually amplify the moves as well, because if the dealers are short the gamma, that has them having to chase basically to continue to remain delta neutral. So yeah, there's a lot to get. It's a can of worms for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, a little quick note about what you said that you came in and you started messing around with options. I think it is so devious. It like is like the
Yeah,
nicest way to put it that retail traders immediately get options shoved in their face. In
I know.
a lot of people that trade nowadays came in 2020, and I was helping one of my best friend's little brother. He graduated from university and he was fucking around with trading and he was showing me what he was doing and he was just basically gambling on call options, and I tried to explain to him like I've traded for X amount of years, I don't touch options, right? Like because I can't trade them effectively. Like you've traded for 3 days, like I pray for you that you make money, but I also know that it's going to be hard for you, right? So it really is crazy to me when we hear like regulators talk about like how they'll talk about how Bitcoin futures are bad, right? But then you can go on Robinhood and I can just full port gamble on fucking illiquid dog shit options contracts. It's just a wild thing to me, honestly. The
Yeah,
people that really
it's
understand these products know how disgusting they are. The people that don't are the people that yap about them. So
I mean, it starts to make the argument for perps and the proposition. Obviously, that can get scary too, because the one thing I personally prefer long call options over perp longs, because I can't get liquidated. On a perp, I can get liquidated. On a call, I just lose the premium that I outlay at the time. But it's a more straightforward payoff structure.
yeah, well, your risk is more
For you.
straightforward on the option, which is great. But the average person can understand a perp much better, which is what it comes down to. You don't need to have an
Exactly, because
understanding to trade a perp.
yeah, so like for example, when you're trying to buy a call, there's a baked in implied volatility in there that is saying for the expected range, and you're having to pay up for that volatility. So not only do you need to be right on the direction that it goes, but if you're long Vega, basically, if you're long a call, you're long Vega, and underline that expectation is that you to be more correct on the the size of the move than what is baked into that implied vol for you to make money. So not only do you have to be right on price, you have to be correct on how much more it's going to move. So, this is always classically seen in earnings in the lead up where it's like, okay, I'm going to buy some calls because I think, Amazon's going to do well into earnings. And okay, look, we did well on earnings. The stock is up 5% after hours. I bought calls. Oh my God, I'm gonna make some money. But you actually lost money because of the implied volatility crash, because the options had priced in a move for 10% and it only moved 5%. So you lose anyway. And yeah, these are things that a lot of people don't know about until they get steamrolled.
So would that same risk would be present on the defensive side of using an option, right? So if I was to buy puts to offset my long, the spot holdings that I have, that would have the same, volatility risk associated with it, right?
Yeah, sorry, can you say that again?
So if you in simple terms, right, if you long a call right and you under expect it or you were off on the volatility right and it came in under what the contract said, you lose money.
Yeah.
If I was to do the same thing to play defense, because one of the things that's most appealing to me about options is the idea of how I can use them to de-risk, right, and to buy puts
Yeah.
essentially. Could the same exact dynamic could play out, right, where you just the volatility's wrong, you bought a put at the right time, but it doesn't necessarily protect your downside that well because your volatility expectation was wrong.
Yeah, so this actually happened in MicroStrategy where, we saw implied vols be so large a few months ago, like November. And so if you were whatever is trading at the highs there and you bought puts, even though the stock came down 40% or so, people still lost money because the implied vol got crushed there. So even though they were long the puts and they're correct on the delta, the price action, they still lost money. So yeah, you gotta be right on the volatility view as well.
Yeah, because I mean that's been one of the most appealing things to me, having chatted with some of my friends that have maybe traded for longer than I, or and maybe specifically the guys that have a lot more experience like trading indexes and stuff. Because my index experience for the S&P and the Nas is pretty minimal. So yeah, I mean being able to have a fixed cost on an option to play defense on your port. Because most of the time when I play defense now, I either use futures for Bitcoin or I use perps for the less liquid shit. And my risk on the hedge is not fixed, right? If I handle
Yeah,
those trades poorly, I can lose money, right, when I'm trying to play defense. So the idea of fixed
totally.
risk parameters on options is very appealing to me because I got to sweat my balls off when I'm managing a perp hedge, because if I fuck up, you can get smacked, right? Where all of a sudden that altcoin moves 10% and you really shot yourself in the foot now. When you were just trying to not lose money, but now you lost money. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think what we're getting at is that there's no free lunch in finance, and like, yeah, you can hedge, but you got to be right. And there's ways to go around that. Like, if implied vol is really high, you can do some sort of credit spread where you can sell a call and then like structure that so that you're actually short the Vega. So even though the price comes down, you're protected on that. So that would have worked pretty effectively on a situation like MicroStrategy. But overall, yeah, like there's no free lunch in markets really.
it's a great way to simplify all the yapping right there. No free lunch. I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, maybe this is a good pausing point for you because I know that you had limited time. If you want to pop out, maybe now's a good time to pause it. I really do appreciate you coming on though to just facilitate a different type of conversation than we would normally have here. So appreciate that, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that, and I really love what you do with Paragon. Like I said, I went through the educational stuff that you did, and it was fundamental for me really understanding like volume profile and order flow and that sort of stuff. So it's cool to come back and chat a bit more of the macro side of things. Yeah, really enjoyed that.
It's really cool when people say that kind of stuff because, people like you are, basically like success stories, right? You came in, did your thing. You didn't really necessarily care that much about what I taught, but maybe it helped you with a thing or two here, and you had your own path and stuff. Which I always advocate for anyways. You shouldn't just, I mean, if copying somebody in front of you works for you, then fucking do it, right? But for most of us, you kind of got to find, there's like some platitude about it. You kind of follow in the steps of others, but make your own path, or some stupid cliche about that. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's great to watch.
exactly. Yeah, awesome. Well, I appreciate you inviting me, and yeah, all the best.
All right, man. Well, I'm going to end the call, but yeah, we'll definitely have a chat here soon.
Cool. Sounds great.
Later, dude. Cool, guys. Well, thanks for him, coming on. I like having conversations that are outside my normal, realm because, frankly, if you talk about the same shit every day, it gets real boring. So, yeah, cool. I'm down to hang out for a few minutes. If you guys have any questions or comments or what have you, otherwise I'll probably piece it out here pretty soon. I in the future when I have someone like him come on, I think I probably need to have a little bit more organization about what he talks about and then having the kind of simple questions down. It's really difficult in the moment when somebody's doing a longer, explanation. It's a very difficult skill set to hear him say that and then to come in and simplify it for you guys. If if I was talking with somebody about flow, I could fucking summarize what they said no matter what, unless they said something wrong, basically. Since he's talking macro when it's not in my wheelhouse, it's a little harder for me to come in and try to explain or add value, but definitely Something I'd like to do. Short corn if it loses value. I mean, high key, if you're gonna be short, you already should be short on Bitcoin. If you're shorting 59K or 95K, 59K. If you're shorting 95K, you're late, brother. So I'm short from 102. I think that price will continue to go lower, which will ultimately just set us up for higher prices later this year. I'm still very, very confident that Bitcoin will be higher this year. No reason to think anything otherwise, but that's why we trade strategically and make plans when we're wrong and whatnot, right? My plan this whole cycle has been up, but you gotta strategically play defense at key moments. Enjoyed the stream? Glad to hear it, Tex. Glad to hear it. When Hyperliquid Vault? Never even considered it. Honestly, the vault thing seems scammy to me. Like, trading with other people's money seems very, very sketchy, to be honest. Not enough alpha in the stream, need a refund. Yeah, I got you, bro. Hop in the DMs. Yeah, it's... I almost made a joke with him, too. Like, I'll pay you, give me your address and I'll hit you for the shill. Because I did not expect him to come on and shill Paragon. That was super cool of him. But he was actually one of our, kind of earlier day students. So, very, very cool to see people come in, learn what they want to learn, and do their things in life. I have a bunch of friends and students like that have like gone on to do a whole bunch of cool shit. And it's very, very rewarding for me to watch. Very, very rewarding. It helps me feel like I'm actually doing something. All right, let me read some questions. What's my favorite lower time frame tool? Just simple or volume analysis and VWAPs. I don't really care that much about OI as much nowadays, so I would say, just simple volume analysis, VWAPs, maybe a spread indicator. Don't need to go too crazy with it, man. Really, the tools aren't what matters, it's your understanding of them what matters, right? I theoretically could trade without any of these things, I just don't want to. Take on CZ. Onboarding on the meme. I don't have a take, bro. Don't have a take. What's my Marvel's rank now? Well, the last time I played Marvel, I played with CBS, and we lost like 6 games in a row because he was trolling. So there's your answer. My Counter-Strike ranks are up. My Marvel ranks are sideways. I basically only play Marvel with friends. I don't really solo queue it. And my friends are dog shit. So there you go. Somebody's going to clip that and send it to him. And that's going to be funny. I'm short from 106, not feeling confident. Well, to be clear, guys, I'm not directionally short. I'm hedged. There's a huge difference. Motherfucker, I'm not bronze. I'm a gamer, dude. I'm too fucking good to be bronze. You could put me on a team with 5 CBSs and I could still win in bronze. The disrespect. The disrespect. No, I was playing... We're balancing out the ping. I was playing on 90 ping, so it was fair. Guys are crazy. Are you a sharpshooter in real life? What does that mean? I'm a sharpshooter in Counter-Strike. Oh, curious if video game aim translates to real weapons. I actually think it does in some regards. I'm not a gun nut, guys, so I do own a gun, but I don't go shooting all that often. But I think that you could make the argument that video game shooting would translate from just like a being calm point of view. I mean, mechanically aiming a gun, you either got it or you don't. Your depth perception and all that shit. Oh, we're going to 0, boys. Real time. What's the best spaghetti chart? I mean, easy shill. I'm running a ton of programs right now, so this is probably going to be slow to load, but we got the Paragon spaghetti that Charlie made. Oh, I helped him a little bit. Do you think it's possible to... Fuck, where'd that question go? Do you think it's possible to make it in trading with simple strategies, or do you need to make it difficult? Simple strategies will almost certainly do better than complex ones will. So yes, it's very possible to do it simple. The way I would explain that is that you need to learn the nuance. Like, so this is how I would explain it. I think everybody should learn the basic order flow concepts for why markets move up or down. Not because you necessarily need to use it, but because you need to have an understanding of why markets are moving. So it's the same kind of thing. If you want to make the simple strategies work, you're going to need experience and some understanding of markets. So you'll probably need to deep dive into some of the nerdier things here or there, because it's going to help you understand bigger picture of why you go up or why you go down, right? Like understanding why did we go down just now, right? I mean, it's a very simple relationship between the ask was thinner than the takers that were selling, so we went down, right? Understanding those kind of things, I think, is really important to make simple trading work. But I'm a big advocate for simplistic trading. Even though I yap hard, my trading is not complicated at all, and I'm always trying to simplify it down and make it more simple. Simplify it down and make it more simple. Tell me a fucking worse constructed sentence than you've ever heard in your life. You guys want CBS? I could talk to him. I've been friends with Schiller for ages, so yeah, maybe he'd come on the channel. Help Charlie aka Whip. No, I did some of the heavy lifting for that stuff. I just don't ever write the code, guys. You asked me to write a line of code and I'm gonna just stare back at you blank. Did you have much time to game when you first started trading and was doing your 9 to 5? That is a fucking fantastic question, Alan. No, I did not. I made the ultimate sacrifice. I got into crypto in late 2016. 2016, 2017, 2018, and into 2019, I did not game hard at all. I had a full-time job that was 10 hours a day in the corporate world. I had a side hustle which took hours every day. So I didn't have any and I still was trying to learn trading shit with the fucking 3 hours or 1 hour I had left over at the end of it. So my gaming career when I was on my grind for work was I played casual Overwatch matches, and I would play like 2 casual Overwatch matches every couple of days. I wouldn't even fucking queue up for comp. I would literally just queue casual game mode. So there you go. If you want to make it and you have limited time, you have to sacrifice some of the fun things because, right, you cannot create more hours in the day, and you only have so much energy as well. So frankly, putting energy towards games, probably not your most efficient, use, right? So hopefully that's pretty straightforward and makes some sense. But when I had 12-hour work days, I wasn't over here gaming Counter-Strike. Actually was dog shit at games during that period, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. So I was terrible for a minute. But we get it all back. Make it all back in one trade. No QE until rates hit 0. Well, guys, I mean, I did want to pick his brain about that stuff more, but it's kind of hard to squeeze it all into that shorter segment. But pretty fucking much a no-brainer to me, right? That, like, there's no fucking reason at all for them to be doing any sort of QE, right? I mean, that's the final tool that they have in their arsenal to save us from utter catastrophe. So if they were to do QE now, that would help us make money now, right? But long term, that would only make things worse. Because QE is got to be the primary reason for why inflation got so bad in 2020. Or in 2022, excuse me. That was one of the layman questions I wanted to ask him. I wanted to say, is QE and the increase in monetary supply of 2020 this primary driver of inflation? Because we kind of all know that that's probably what it is. I wanted to ask him that in case that there was some nuance I was missing. But we kind of all know that QE and, creating 40% more dollars in 3 months that normally would have taken decades to do, that's pretty obviously why inflation got so bad. Think we get a puke and mean revert with shorts OI ramping up now? I have zero interest in buying into this. If there was some sort of wipe, maybe I would have a different stance. But for right now, playing defense, I'm waiting for everybody that's going to be a pussy and sell to just, I'm not waiting for buyers to come in. I'm waiting for sellers to give up. So eventually they'll give up. Who knows how low that will be? That could be right now. 95K could be the low. I'm not going to bet on it, though. Not wise to bet on this being the low. Link Marine saying sell your alts. That's sad, bro. Did you give up on Link? I have noticed that Delta is mostly negative over the long run on Binance with momentum upwards created by the bid absorbing it. Have you noticed this as well? Yes, that is going to be common amongst any exchange. It's most notable on Binance. I don't know the exact reason for why Binance is a net seller and why they're, just use the passive side to hold price up. But if you were to look at any exchange on a long enough time horizon, you're going to see the same thing. I wish I had a CVD is down over a yearly time horizon because of X, Y, and Z. I don't actually know the answer for why it is, but it definitely is true. Almost every venue, if you zoom out enough, is going to be CVD down only. So if you want to have some fun or maybe prove me wrong, go and look at all the venues and see if you can find a venue that's up and prove me wrong. How did you get away with playing FPS at work? Is that what that sounded like? I meant like I would play FPS a little bit at home. For like 30 minutes though. Need more hours in the day. Don't we all? Since Marvel released, we've gone sideways. Coincidence? 100%. 100%. I can't make all the jokes that come to mind though. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, QE screwed us. Look at Japan. Well, there you go. I don't know anything about the Japanese economy other than everybody cries about how they have not kept pace with the world over the past, like, 2 decades. Not gonna lie, I wanted him to talk about mortgage rates. Well, don't worry. We will have Fejau come back. And I'm going to pronounce his name correctly at the beginning of the stream. It's crazy because I've never really voice chatted with him. I've DM'd with him. So for like years, my brain read his name in a specific way. So it's really hard for me to like reword that in my brain. Yeah, Fejau. Fejau. I always pronounced it so fucking different in my head. He was cool about it though, so that's all that matters. I was told it was Putin's fault. That's good, bro. That's good. Yeah, for me, that shit was really hard to listen to whenever the political pundits were saying that it's this leader's fault, it's that leader's fault, when unironically it was their own fault. Like, that was painful. But that's the whole, that's just the way that the, geopolitical world plays out. It's just, I create the problem, but then if I can put the blame on you, then I win. Very, very wild. Do you have the ability to be sure when the sellers give up? Brother, I don't have the ability to be sure of anything. The longer you trade, the more you will realize that there's no such thing as anything close to a certainty. Even the things that you think are certain aren't certain. So I will never be able to know for sure when the bottom is in, but I don't care because I'm a gambler. And when I think it makes sense to gamble and I think it's a smart gamble, I will gamble. So that likely means lower prices. There are nuanced ways for you to get a good idea of when the sellers are exhausting and tiring out, but ultimately you can never know when. Let me explain in a diagram form, right? Let's say price goes down and you can look at the volume histogram at the bottom and you can see who's buying and selling, right? Let's say market just went down because this guy sold a whole lot right here, right? And then the market starts to round out and then there's no selling coming through, just kind of random regular selling, the market comes through and you're right here. This is where we're at. Can you tell me with confidence that this guy will not sell again? And you can't, because you could never know how many coins he has. You could never know what his intention is, etc. So the answer to that question is that there will never be an answer to that question. That's the answer. Become comfortable with the uncertainty, my friends. It's very, very difficult for all of us to become comfortable with uncertain times, or not understanding how things will play out, but you gotta accept that eventually. The next economic stimulus will occur when QT ends rather than QE starts. I can't say anything on that because I don't know. Any advice on becoming a KOL LARP? Let's see. Step 1. Reply guy, all the big 700,000, all the big 700,000 follower accounts. Start reply guying them all. That's step 1. That's how you get a little bit of attention to your account. Step 2, start writing out alpha threads where you're just completely making everything up, where you're saying the wildest shit, but you want to make it so wild to where it's hard to disprove. Okay, that's step 2. Step 3, start flexing P&L cards. Step 4. What's step 4? Profit. Step 4 is profit. You're welcome. You've officially joined my KOL class. You guys are all now experts. Expert KOLs. You're welcome. Step 5, rug. Yeah. Step 5, rug. Step 6, make a new persona and do it all again. Look, guys, one of the ways that you know that I can't scam you guys and make rugs and all that kind of shit is because I didn't really realize this at the time, but my voice is doxed, right? You guys know my voice. So I can't go and, like, make a fucking new account and pretend to be somebody else unless I use a fucking, like, voice changer or whatever, right? You guys would know as me instantly. The anchored VWAP from November 4th, the election day, has been the best line in the sand for this price action. I don't disagree with you. I don't have that chart pulled up, but let's see if it's going to be right here. Nope. Right here. Nope. Right here. Yes. I don't remember which tickers are which. But yeah, I mean, that VWAP is getting less and less important, homie. Just letting you know. Oh, you said November 4th? Oh, I guess it's the same thing. I just drew it a little different probably, but it doesn't have much relevance moving forward, brother. That VWAP has lost its value for sure. Because the whole idea of the Trump narrative in the medium term is done for us. You said something I don't like when ranging it will end. You said something I don't like when ranging will end, but I will know when it happens. I mean, your sentence is frying my brain. Very, very few people will ever be able to know when you're inside a range that you're going to break out either way. To say that we're going to break out, easy. But to time it and say we're going to break out tomorrow, very, very low probability. But when you are trending, I can tell you with a lot of confidence when we're going to start to range before the range really establishes. It all comes down to the auction market theory principles that I'm super comfortable with and a bit of, balls tingling and autism. But, I mean, I've showed you guys this multiple times where I've said, like, we're probably going to range, and I don't normally try to fuck around with guessing the high and low of the range too much because that's futile, but the timing of it is pretty important, right? So I called this range before it really started, and it's not like that's a flex, right? Because it doesn't really, I'm trying to make it educational, right? You start to get comfortable with gauging momentum when it's trending. It's going to be something that you're going to need to take a lot of time doing, but if you get comfortable understanding how expansion moves play out and then what they look like as they start to exhaust, in confluence with some maybe macro levels, right? Like 100K obviously mattered, and we know 90K obviously matters, so digress from that, but not really sure exactly what you're getting at. On the daily chart, well, it's the same. The VWAP will be the same whether it's a daily or a 4-hour or whatever. It doesn't make a difference. How's your cycle top, or how's your feel on cycle top Q1 versus Q4 these days? My stance has changed because it doesn't seem that we're going to trade up this quarter, and we still could, but I'm not holding my breath for that. So that changes the probabilities more towards the top being later this year versus being, when we were in December and November of last year, I said I think the cycle top will be Q1 of 2025. But I don't think that's going to be the case now. I think that it will likely be later in the year. I got you, Livid. I got you. I'll just make shit up on the fly and it will sound good because I'm a bullshitter. Now, sadly, I know a lot of KOL people, so I know what they're doing. It is what it is. There's no real sense in sitting here crying about, what they're doing or, caring or anything. You either play the game or you don't, and I've chosen to just not play the game. So I just, I let all those people do their thing and I don't care. A significant majority of people will never be able to trade. It is what it is. I have a close friend that sounds exactly like you. That's crazy, bro, because I'm just your real life friend too, and you just didn't know it. I hate altcoins. Yeah, fuck altcoins. Just wanted to thank you for educational content. Thanks, bro. Lenart, appreciate you. Did you ever figure out which bias affects you the most? To be honest, bro, I didn't really think about it too much after you asked me that. Like, I know immediately off the top of my head that, like, getting carried away with being bullish when my P&L is wild numbers. That's definitely been one of my biggest issues. But, honestly, Livid, it's a super thought-provoking kind of answer. And, you know, the deeper you go into thinking about that, the more you're probably going to want to not share with other people because you're just I'm getting deep into my own faults as a human being as I think about those things. So I'll end up sharing it anyways because I'm just the type of person that doesn't give a shit, but it does make you uncomfortable as you, like, really analyze yourself deeply about your faults. It's very, very difficult for most of us to share that stuff, honestly. You said you don't know when it will break out, but you are aware while it's happening. I'm not sure exactly what I said. I would say I know when it could be happening because, you know, we could have broken out here. We could have. This could have been a breakout move. It didn't work out for us because of a number of reasons, but I know when we can break out. That's how I should word that. I don't know when we will. It's easy to know when we're ranging to still mag as composite. Facts, Nikki. Basing off, if we lose the VWAP, that's bullish momentum lost and a new 8-month trend has dropped. Not super sure what we're talking about. Honestly, guys, this later into the stream, my brain's cooked. Yes, if we lose this golden Trump VWAP right here, we're not looking good, which seems pretty fucking obvious, guys. We're going to lose it because momentum is really weak right now, right? You're retesting it, legitimate drive back, but I mean, this is not what you want to see, right? And especially some of this stuff over here. So it seems pretty obvious we'll lose that VWAP. BTC long levels, basically from like 92 down to 88. Blindly bidding this is stupid. You need to watch us trade into this region and then react to it, because there's definitely a chance that we could just trade right through this because we've already kind of had interactions with this level a lot. So we could just trade through this. I don't think that that's what's going to happen, and I do think that this will be a good long. At the very least, it would be a good long to basically just trade it back up for reversion. Something like this, maybe. Where you, like, trade it back up to mid-range or whatever, and then, like, re-hedge. Something like that. I could see this. I still think that we'll resolve higher, but if you realize how previous ranges had played out, right? I mean, like, dealing with this stage in the late range is not something a lot of you guys should be super open to doing. You know, don't expose yourself to that risk unnecessarily. Hardest but most rewarding part are to look at ourselves truthfully, warts and all. I like that you put the warts in there. Yeah, dude. It's definitely one of the hardest things about trading or just kind of anything competitive, that you have to face your faults and your shortcomings, because if you don't, then you will never be able to overcome them. So when you go out and fail today as a trader, you have to face what you did wrong, because that's what gives you a chance of doing better next time around. And that is really, really hard for us, right? You basically have to let go of your ego and let progression or moving forward be the most important thing, which for a lot of us is really difficult because our egos matter. I have an ego, but also not really. I have an underlying ego that tells me I can do things better than other people, and it fuels me forward. But I also, at the same time, always am mindful that there's always a bigger fish. That's the best way to explain it, right? The little Qui-Gon Jinn quote. No matter how good you get, no matter how big you get, no matter how sophisticated you get, well-known you get, whatever fucking metric you care about, there will always be somebody that will be better than you that can come in and crush you. And I think that having that humility is really important as a trader. You know, there's been times, good example. Some of the times where I learned that lesson the hard way was when I tried to play God mode in altcoin perp books. You know, I've tried to do my thing here or there, and you know, a lot of times it worked out, and then a lot of times it didn't. And the moments where it didn't were the moments where I realized, like, I just tried to play God, and then somebody that's bigger, better, and stronger than me came in and said, "Nice try, bitch." So those moments are where, you know, you get humbled and stuff, and it's really important that you find you got to strike a balance between having some ego and having some self-belief, because without self-belief you'll never be able to make money. But you have to have the humility to balance it out, because the humility is how you keep your ego from getting ahead of itself and losing all that money, right? Ego makes money, humility keeps it. Find the balance between the two. Good fucking luck, because it's really hard. What do you think Bitcoin dominance breaks down at some point in the next few months? I see no reason to fade the Bitcoin dominance trend. If the trend is persistent and a trend is going up or trend is going down, don't fade the trend. Expect the trend to always continue. So if we look at BTC dominance, which I don't really care about this kind of shit, but if we look at Bitcoin dominance, it's probably the worst chart to look at it on. If we look at a Bitcoin dominance chart, it tells you that the trend is up. So if the trend is up, then why the fuck are we going against it, you know? Trying to predict the trend being over is foolish. If we look at Bitcoin dominance, again, I don't care about these kind of things. Bitcoin dominance is ever present in the altcoin charts. I don't need this one. But the trend is up, and, you know, I don't care if you want to draw resistance or whatever, right? Doing TA on charts like this is dumb in my opinion. Because this thing doesn't have a fucking order book, so it doesn't make any sense. Even TA itself is lame. But the trend is up, so you should expect the trend to go up. The meta that we're in is that there's an enormous amount of demand for Bitcoin. So pretty obvious that Bitcoin's going to keep doing well and doing its thing. And betting against Bitcoin, it makes no sense. So I didn't really explain that very well, but I kind of rambled about it a little bit. What style of meditation do you do? I do the walking meditations. So back in the day, I used to do the whole sit in the fucking dark room and clear your mind. I didn't like it. I could do it because I have self-control, but I didn't like it. What I started doing was I'll take my dog on a walk twice a day, and when I would walk would be when I would think. And instead of traditional meditation is, this is your brain. Yeah, it looks more like a butt, but this is your brain, and you got all this shit swirling around in your brain all the time. And traditional meditation is, you need to clear all this shit out so that your brain looks like this. It's really hard to do that, especially with all the shit that's in front of us with the screens and all these things. So what you want to do instead, or at least in my humble opinion, is that you want to learn to let this information that's floating around in your head, one piece at a time, come to the forefront of your brain. Yes, we're just drawing dicks, right? Bring this information to the forefront of your brain and let it work it out. If you're stressed out about, my dog's sick right now, I'm stressed, let that thought come to your mind, think about it, and then let it come outside of your brain. Each time you bring a thought to the forefront and you work it out, now you have less shit floating around in your brain. You slowly let the things that are stressing you out and worrying you leave your mind. Now, there's different approaches to this. You could write it down. You could speak it. I just think it, and that's how it works for me. Some of you guys writing it down would be a great idea, though. And yes, I will take any excuse I can ever come up with to draw a dick on TradingView. 100%. That is simultaneously a good lesson and a dick drawing. You are welcome. One of the hardest things to do is be honest with oneself. And semen retention. Holy fuck, you debated me into reading that. That's crazy. Semen retention has done so much for your discipline. That's crazy, bro. Really abstaining from video games because of semen retention. Don't ever fade livid, guys. Trader Dante quote about humility. I don't know what Dante's quote about that is. Brother, what am I watching it? This is the real content you guys come here for, right? You guys lie to yourself and say you want to come and listen to me to learn something, right? But you really come to just get retarded with me. We all know this. Do you have a rich family member that has owned an RS8 or an RS7? I don't even know what an RS7 is. That's an Audi? No. Nice try. Yeah, actually, yeah, that's Lear. That's Lear's whip, 100%. Was looking at your EDU videos last night, then I looked at your analysis from this week. The one before from a year ago, very similar. I don't know exactly what you're talking about looking to, so, you know, what videos you looked at, but yeah, I mean, guys, my shit doesn't really change that much, you know? My high time frame plans stay the same for the most part. If your high time frame plans are changing every month, then there's a serious fucking problem. I'm not saying that you can't pivot to being bearish to defend yourself or whatever. You definitely should do that stuff, but try to keep your plans, make good plans that can work for a long time, you know? Which basically means bet on up. Speaking style and voice sounds similar to the friend. Yeah, well, I mean, I've just high-key been playing games with you all these years and you just didn't know it was me. How old is your friend? Because that to me probably means that I got the Zoomer speak down, which is my huge goal, right? We want to pretend to be young whilst being old. When you see momentum loss, is there a way to gauge where the next move will be up or down after consolidation? Yes and no. I mean, there's kind of a lot that I can unpack in that statement. Here's the simplest way to explain it. If price goes up and consolidates, what's most likely to happen in this scenario? Is it likely to go down or up? It should almost always be up in your mind. Why? Because that's the direction that we just impulsed. If you impulse up and go sideways up, you should expect up. There's no universal truth with this. There's obviously a lot of little details that need to be woven in here, but you want to expect up. You want to bet on continuation of the trend, right? Every time you do a consolidation and trend up again, you basically just get more confident that that's what you're going to keep doing. Being perpetually mindful that eventually you want to be mapping out these drives, and as the drives get weaker, that's momentum loss and that's the trend dying. That's how trends die. Weaker impulses into momentum loss and getting soaked by supply, basically. So if you impulse in a direction and consolidate, you should expect continuation until the momentum of the trend has diminished. Very, very difficult to see these kind of things in real time without a lot of experience, if I'm being honest. These things are very obvious after the fact. You are an artist. Thank you, brother. That's the best compliment I could ever give. I'm a dick drawing artist. Time for Magus to get married. I'm going to lose all my edge, but have a child, so it'll be worth it. Livid, I respect that you're just slowly trying to socially engineer me into giving away all my personal information. I respect it. You're doing it in a clever way. So I'll give you credit for that. Hype at the quarterly view up thoughts. Hype is looking real good, boys. Looking crazy. I could not buy this. Couldn't do it. Because it just doesn't look good to me. I would rather be wrong on hype and be late to it once it starts to trend than be early on it and to get clapped up in the meantime, right? This is the argument I made last week that we could be rounding out, but I need to see it actually making moves up. This is just not appealing to me. This rejection says don't buy into it, if I'm being honest. So that's my stance on hype. I might buy it lower, but ultimately I'm really worried about the idea of this being a rounding out and just getting ready to roll over and trade lower again, right? It doesn't make any sense to have a risk appetite right now. Bitcoin's slowly bleeding out and trading lower. I'm not going to buy hype when I think Bitcoin's going to trade down. So maybe Bitcoin, you know, pulls the Band-Aid off a little bit, trades down lower, maybe hype trades down. The problem is that there's definitely consensus about bidding $20 to $18. People want to buy down here, which makes me concerned. I don't have a perfect answer for you on that one. Stream is busting for real, for real. My trade execution sucks. I keep losers too long and cut winners too early. What the fuck? Any advice to help? Well, I hope that you are, you know, you're obviously self-aware of what's going wrong. So, I mean, ultimately, I can't give you a, you're going to do this and do that and it's going to work. You gotta figure these things out your own. So, you know what you're doing wrong. So you need to start, like, you know, keeping some sort of note process about when you sold that bag too early and I bought this too early or I bought it too late or whatever. You know, for the years that I've been doing these streams now, you guys have always heard me talk about the emphasis on, like, bid strength, right? I don't buy things that are trending downwards. I buy things mostly that are trending upwards only. So if you are buying things that are going down, right? If it's going down and you're buying it and then it goes down and you're buying it and it goes down and you're buying it, right? That's, you deserve, you know, I'm sorry, bro, but you deserve to lose, right? That's the market is not going to reward that kind of behavior. You want to do the opposite, where you want it to be going up. It goes up and I'm buying it, and it goes up and I'm buying it, right? So that's the classic, you know, PTJ lesson, that losers average losers. If your thing is going trending down, it's not something you should be buying. Over the years that I've done these streams, specifically with alts, I've time and time again done this ramble about looking for things that are actually trending upwards to buy. We all go through this period of making this mistake. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to sit on my pedestal of greatness. Like, I don't ever do this. I don't do this nowadays because I lost so much money doing this. In 2018, for example, I made so much money on paper in 2017. And in 2018, I lost it all from the market bleeding out and then doing shit like this, where I was buying things that were trending downwards. So please, for the love of whatever religion you believe in, do not buy downtrending assets. It will just be perpetual pain for you. All you will ever know is pain. Hopefully that is helpful. We don't fuck with Ethereum, guys, you know. It's that simple. I barely even remember Ethereum exists most of the time. As somebody who originally came into the space for ETH, we don't fuck with ETH. We're saltheads these days. OM momentum loss, I'm worried about that as well. So there you go. There's a tech, that's, we can see that explanation that I just gave you in real time on a real example. I still own some OM, but I did start taking profit on it for this exact reason. Now I'm looking like a real gig chad because I was selling before it started selling off. So feeling good about this one. OM was one of the best performing assets recently. Why it moved up or anything, I don't fucking have a clue, honestly, other than it's RWA project. But yeah, was lucky to have caught this one early, and I have started taking profit on it. ETH's not even in the friend zone at this point, 100%. It's the fucking enemy. The only use case of ETH is to hedge your Bitcoin long with a shorting ETH, 100%. No problem, Foxy. Have a good one, dude. Glad to hear that, Alan. Picasso. They call me Penis Casso. ETH BTC is the X you keep going back to. Yeah, it's just like ETH BTC is the perfect example of you just don't buy the perpetual downtrending asset. We all do this, right? I only know that lesson because I've made the mistake so many times in the past myself. I've been a Fed all along. I can see you, motherfucker. right through the lines in your text. Been on light mode on TradingView, but now I see they have implemented the real dark mode. Yeah, I don't know when they changed this, but it looks a lot better. To where like my other computer was like this was actually black, and it looks really good compared to what they used to have. So I'm a dark mode advocate because I think that staring at this is not good for your eyeballs. Honestly, that's what it comes down to. I think that these like in between, like this is a dark theme, but it's got a little bit of lightness to it, so I can still see it. This is, you know, this is the end all be all of charts for me personally. I've noticed the best traders I know focus on getting good entries over targets and stop losses. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, stop losses and targets are a meme. Getting good execution, getting good fills, right? Getting long or short at a very, very competitive and key moment is the most valuable thing for you as a discretionary trader, right? So the way that we would explain that would be in the distribution curve, right? You guys know we love distribution curves because that's essentially what a footprint is, right? Or a profile, right? So if we have a distribution that we're trading in, let's redo that. We are stuck inside this distribution. It means that this is considered expensive and this is considered cheap. So fills in these areas should be competitive, and these are the best areas to buy and sell. In the vacuum of this simplistic example, please give me some fucking slack with it, right? So that means that if I have an opportunity, we trade down here quickly, and I have an opportunity to buy here, my target and shit, I'm not even thinking about that, right? I just know this is a good area to buy because it's a discounted price relative to the current distribution. So it's a good area for me to buy. We shouldn't spend very much time here. We should be here for seconds, right? It should be quick if it's a real value buy. So essentially, I don't care about where my stop loss or my target is on this trade because it's just not, that's not a first thought for me, right? The competitive fill is the most important thing. So, you know, in the simplistic version, I'm saying, you know, if we're weak below, a little bit below my entry, then I'm wrong. I don't use hard stops on any of this stuff. So I say, you know, I'll manually stop myself out at a certain point and then say, you know, probably revert back up. If this is the POC, I'll front run the POC and maybe I might even front run the value area low and say this is here. And then boom. I mean, that's a reasonable trade where if you want to be a hard stop Andy, you say, okay, I got my hard stop here. I got my manual stop here. I got my entry, and I'm taking it back for the reversion trade. Was this pretty? No. Was this informative? Fuck yes, it was. Are you more comfy in longs or shorts generally, or are you ambivalent? I am definitely much more comfortable in longs. I don't really directionally short that much, guys. I know that's maybe something you wouldn't expect me to say, but I very rarely directionally short. I almost always just short to defend my longs. So yes, I'm a long only kind of trader for the most part. The only type of market regime I'll ever short in is 2022 style markets. Wait, that's good. Penis Casso. Of course. Dark mode with max blue light filter. I think, isn't the blue filters bad for you, right? A lot of traders say the market offers good trading days, 5 to 6 days a month for intraday trades. What are your thoughts on this? It's so random. I mean, good intraday trading environments, right? Like right now, what do you guys think this is? Is this a good intraday environment or a bad one? I'll give you guys a chance to answer that before I say anything. I think that, you know, the number of days that are good for trading is not something that can be looked at as a consistent, because 1 month might be great and the next month might be not. And if you're actually looking at that from a data standpoint, right, it doesn't fucking mean anything. So yes, it's important that you know that not every day is going to be a great intraday trading environment. It's important that you know that, but having the expectations of next month is going to give me 5 good days to trade or whatever, like, definitely don't think about it in those terms, my friends. Distribution curve with squiggles. Crazy, am I right? Why open interest quoted in USD looks way different than coin. I don't use dollar denominated OI because that's going to move up and down as the price of Bitcoin goes up and down and not really reflect open interest accurately, in my opinion. So when you use open interest in coin, it's going to be tracking when Bitcoins are opened and closed, right? It's a lot more actionable and reliable information. Very good intraday environment, 10 out of 10. I know you're trolling with that one, right? Because it's not a good environment to trade right now, right? One of the most important things as to why that is, you guys have wondered why is now not a good time to trade. This. When we have high volatility events that shit on a lot of traders, we go into a low volatility wound licking regime where it's boring as shit. So right after all this was over, I knew we're done skis for a minute. So I haven't really actively traded in like over a week now. So hopefully that makes sense. Sear that in your brain. After high volatility fuck you events that wipe people out, low volatility boring. All right, you guys are yapping in the chat. I'm gonna go through the questions and then we'll be done here pretty soon. Did you TP any Sol spot around 260? At what price would you add? I didn't sell any of my Solana spot yet. Well, I actually did, but not from like a profit-taking standpoint. It was a portfolio rebalancing trade. So no, when Solana traded up there, I was in a beautiful perpetual long. So from 180, I was long right here, and then it did this on perps. So in hindsight, I should have sold some of it. I was actually talking with Doc about this just yesterday. I should have sold some of my Solana spot when we traded up to 300, but honestly, my perpetual long P&L was so juicy that that's all I was thinking about. I was long from like, I think 184 or 185, so really low. And then, I mean, it was just an absolute gift. Like the Trump team totally just gifted me a giga trade. So that was my main focus at the time. And I aggressively sold off that perp trade real quick when that shit happened. Where would I add Solana, bro? I don't fucking know. That's a really tough one for me to say right now because I think prices are going to trade lower. So just wait till Bitcoin's done selling off and that's when you buy Solana. That's how you think about that stuff, in my opinion. You said that losers average losers, but if you set a limit on Bitcoin at 90K to 0 with 1K spaces between them, I'm pretty sure you will have a better entry than if you wait for the trend to resume. No. Because I wanted to make sure I really didn't really understand what you were saying that well, so I had to think about that for a second. Definitely not, because what you're not accounting for in the meantime is like, what does your average entry is not the most important part. Potential drawdown in the meantime, if that's your trading strategy, you potentially set yourself up to let the market run you over, and you could be underwater for whoever knows how long. So that sounds like a really dangerous approach. If you are a full-time working day jobber, then these kind of DCA approaches, not that one, but just periodically buying Bitcoin every 1 month or whatever, that's maybe a legit strategy. But placing limit orders from 90K to 0 and letting them fill is a perfect way for you to lose everything. Because frankly, if the majority of those things fill, you're wrong, right? I don't think that Bitcoin should trade below like 70 or 80 for the trend to have any. Right? If Bitcoin goes to 60K, the trend has like basically no chance of survival at that point. The trend is completely dead, and that means that we'll probably go to 20K from there, 30K. So leaving resting orders in the book, if you guys want to do that, go for it. But telling you from experience, you will not enjoy that for the most part unless you get fucking lucky. Very, very easy to get run over, my friends. And getting run over as a trader is something you should be terrified of. We are Dunskies. That's just me being old, honestly, Nikki. Don't believe Magus's lies. I saw him stop the books from reaching 300 on Solana. Yeah, I pulled a gala on Solana. No, if I took my entire net worth on 10x, I probably couldn't stop Solana from going up like that. When you say using Bybit, is there a futures ticker to use, not perps, for swing trades? I would not use Bybit futures. Yes. Bybit will have futures contracts. I don't know what the ticker names are, but like a Binance ticker, for example, it's just going to have the fucking expiration date in the ticker, right? So it'll be like BTC, 25, like 0325 for the 25th of March expiration, right? Like that's what you're looking for, but do not trade Bybit futures, guys. Please. There's just not enough liquidity on those things. Bybit options, Bybit futures, none of that shit should be traded. Bybit perps only. I'm not a Bybit shill. I don't like Bybit, but liquidity matters a lot. Charlie, you did a whole stream and you're still going? Oh, you did the Paragon one. I missed it. Yeah, I just felt like yapping. We had a good chat with the homie, Fejau. And I kind of felt like just continuing to yap with the boys for a minute. So we're just shooting the shit right now. We're going to be done here real soon, though. Prince of England. Yeah, Charlie's accent is great, though. Having become friends with a lot of Englishmen over the years, it's really interesting how all my friends, from the same island, but they all have very different ways of speaking. The different, dialects or whatever, for the English folk is really interesting. Some of my friends sound like absolute aristocrats, and other friends just sound like, like white trash equivalent. Don't any of you guys clip that and name names or do anything, because I shouldn't have said that. It sounded way worse than it was supposed to. But Charlie has a great accent. Also, let's talk about that, Livid, you were asking about KOLs? Having a fancy accent, right? Do not have an accent like mine. If you have a fancy accent, that's plus 50 KOL points. You're welcome. People listen to me and it immediately discredits me because of my voice and my accent. But I know I'm saying things of value, so you gotta look past or listen past my voice to the information. Charlie needs to adopt me. Stream is a gold one. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Asserting dominance on old Charles, just outstreaming him. He's a little older. It's all right. We'll cut him some slack. No, honestly, high key, Charlie's dealing with some fucking bullshit right now. I don't know why exactly, but yeah. WAP just fucking makes changes willy-nilly, so we had some WAP issues. I can almost guarantee Charlie's fucking dealing with that right now. How do you approach being spot long that you have a leverage position, position sizing? I just treat them completely separate. So like if I'm spot long Bitcoin and then I go take a perp long Bitcoin, then I'm going to try to sit in the perp long for a couple of days. I'm not adding them together for my total Bitcoin exposure, right? They're just completely separate. So my perpetual trading account is like less than 10% of my money. I don't trade with an enormous amount of money these days. So just do simple position calculations how you normally would, but just separate them. Do not include the spot trade as part of the perp trade. The perp trade standalone. CBS not going to be happy. No, CBS is one of my friends that has a decent accent for sure. But yeah, some of my friends have terrible English accents, to be honest. And it was interesting how there's just such there's so much diversity in English accents, right? Like there's like a full autistic spectrum. There's 3 main accents in Australia. So that's a good, I have Aussie friends, but I haven't talked with them enough to have picked up on the individual accents. I legitimately know the different accents for the English people because So many of my friends are from there now. Get an English accent, dude. Yeah, just fucking come out here and just literally make fun of you guys. I'm gonna just like aim training, but I'm gonna fucking accent train and then just come on here and you gotta. It's like the one word I can say really well. Other British friends don't sound as good as yours. I swear you do the Queen's English. Yeah, he does have the Queen's English for show. Cool analysis, bro. Which CS skins are going up 10x this year? None of them. You're welcome. Yeah, you're a little bit late to the stream, my boy. Honestly, you missed... we actually had a pretty good stream today, but you're just late to it. We had Fejau on, the macro nerd. Yapping macro. But yeah, here's what Counter-Strike skins you want to buy. Let me pull up my inventory and just list every single skin that I have, and then you want to buy what I have so that the prices go up. You're welcome. That's the OG on-chain rug pull. Buy my Counter-Strike skins. No, high-key Counter-Strike skins are a pretty bad investment unless you have a really, really high time horizon, and they take a long time to move. And they're not very liquid unless you buy specifically liquid skins. He's got lightning round ticker questions. All right, all right. What would you do if have you a smooch? What the hell are you saying, Alan? Trying to give me a smooch? I don't know what you're saying. I read that 3 times. I don't know. What's your favorite ticker? My favorite ticker of all time has got to be one of the dumb X ones, like XVG, Verge. XVG probably, favorite ticker. Favorite asset to trade? I like that you snuck the social security number in there. That was very, very sly of you. Favorite asset to trade? Definitely changed over the years, because crazily enough, I would have said ETH back in the day, but it's obviously Bitcoin. I like everything I do is around Bitcoin. Least favorite asset? I don't know, you know. There's a lot of them. This definitely is one of them. One of my least favorite is Atom, for sure. No way he's still alive? Legends never die, Kryptoski. You can add in your own sounds in Silico terminal? Is that a thing? That's fucking hilarious. If you have just autistic accents from me as your execution sounds, that's fucking hilarious. I give you a smooch back, Alan, obviously. Clipping as we speak. I'm cooked. Can we get a splendid mate and... Asperger syndrome unite. Cardano's not one of the worst tickers for sure. There's a lot worse ones, and like, you know, this is definitely a worse coin would be this one. EOS? More like POS. Haha. Do you have any tips on growing a smaller account nowadays? Is it still possible to scalp if there's any edge or not paying fees or losses? So if you want to scalp, you need to trade shitcoins, because let me feed you guys some OG scalping alpha. I was gonna draw it, but I don't feel like it. I'll just say it. The fee on a Bitcoin perp and on random XYZ perp is the same, right? Standard is, you know, standard, you do no volume, maximum taker fee, probably like 7 basis points. Maybe that's come down nowadays. I don't really know. I tend to get hooked up on fees these days. I don't know what standard fees are. But the point is, this fee is the same for an altcoin as it is for Bitcoin. But in order to make a Bitcoin trade equate to an altcoin trade, you have to use leverage. When I use 2x leverage on a Bitcoin trade, my position is now 2 times larger than the altcoin comparison. Now, that means I am paying twice as much in fees because my position is twice as large, thus twice as many fees. It's not all sunshine and rainbows because it's difficult to get cheap executions on alts, but if done correctly, scalping on alts versus scalping on Bitcoin, alts should be a lot cheaper. The one caveat there is you probably need to use passive orders to make that work. So, is scalping on a small account doable nowadays? It's more doable on a small account than it is on a big account by a lot, right? So if you're small and you're wondering, like, can I scalp? Like, yeah, it's actually easier for you to scalp than somebody with a lot of money, right? Scalping with $5,000 is a lot easier than scalping with $500,000, for example, right? Like I don't even know if I could scalp with 500K on an altcoin. I don't think I can even pull that off. I would have to trade a lot smaller than that to get in and out. So hopefully that you find useful. You definitely can scalp if that's what you want to do. Scalping is very fucking difficult, so good luck. But your account size is definitely not holding you back. I don't know if you use your personal name, so I'm going to call you 3x Liquidated in the chat. We got to get a CS session in here real soon. But not on Face It. That last Face It game we played the other day was just too much. Like, those level 10 fucking nerds. When I'm used to going against like level 6s and 7s and they're just idiots and I could just body all of them and you put me against level 10s, that was not fun the other night, man. Had to fucking sweat and we still lost. Oh, I think we actually would have won if our guy didn't disconnect, right? We had a fucking 4v5. What a scam. Shitcoin scalping is so easy, but you can't size much. Yes. But that's not necessarily a problem, right? Having to trade smaller is just part of the game. It could be an okay thing. I like pain, so I scalp NQ and major 4Xs to play against the big boys. Alan is a masochist, my friends. I would never trade those things anymore. I traded the NQ, I traded the mini NASDAQ contract a bit in 2020. I would not recommend that on anybody. I wouldn't put trading the S&P and the NASDAQ on my greatest enemy. Also easy to lose money. Yes, very, very. The flip side of the altcoin scalping is it's easy to run the money up, very, very easy to lose it. You could have 10 trades, build the account up, 1 trade, wipe it all very easily. Scalping like shaving someone's head off, 100%. Yeah, pop up in my DMs, Cryptoski. I'll give you a quick scalp. Can we get a Magus Livid interview next when I become a great trader? Yeah, just hit me up when you become a great trader. No, on a serious note, I don't actually, we've been chatting a lot on and off in the Paragon, so I don't actually know where you are at in your own experience arc, but if you're kind of in the middle, that could even be something that could be good potentially where, you know, we could have a discussion about like someone that's in the middle of their, you know, journey. Give a different perspective potentially. Are you a good speaker, my friend? Because that's the most, yeah, we're going to get Lucifer on here next week. No, I actually have I have a guest next week. It's not official, but Delta XBT should be on next week. He agreed. So I'm going to hold him to it. It's a contractual obligation. Do you have any suggestions for how to find appropriate coins to scalp? I saw one of your videos using a scanner, but it was quite old. Same approach, bro. You want to look for the thing, whatever's being traded the most is what you want to play on, right? If you go on trade on something that's not being traded a lot, you're going to be 1v1ing the market maker and you're going to lose. You need to go to somewhere that has other gamblers on the perp with you. Yeah, and he was our top frag too, so it was even worse. And I was struggling that game too. It was a little bit of a shell shock to bump up in a bracket and face it to where people that actually knew how to not expose themselves all the time. Also, the last thing I'll say is that I need to get a session with you where my game with you is one of the first or second games. Because often I play with you when I'm on like my 5th or 6th game, which is when I'm going to play my worst because I'm tired. So I need to get an early setup session with you here soon, so you can actually see me in my prime. Not 6 games in where I'm falling asleep. A lot of good swing traders I know have a lot of scalping experience in the past. They always look like gods in swing trades. That's interesting. I think that the value of learning to scalp and stuff should not be underwritten because it can contribute to any sort of trading, whatever you want to do. I just fucking totally punched my desk by accident. Fuck. That hurt. The skill sets feed into one another, right? So if you get comfortable with how markets move on the micro scale, the same logic applies on the macro scale of how they move on the micro. So that's probably pretty common because people get comfortable with things. And then also, right, like a lot of times people move towards higher time frame from lower time frame because you kind of have to as a trader, right? As you actually accrue some capital, you can't sit there and effectively trade lower time frame with that money. Right, so you have to move toward things in the direction of higher time frame as you build capital, moving towards swings in portfolio management. Mostly you to prop firm. Okay, well that's different, brother. I thought you were just saying that you just choose to do that. I'm gonna change your name in the server, Jake, to the Barber now. Yeah, Magus Lucifer stream next. 100% confirmed. Having weekly guests. Yeah, so guys, I used to do a lot of weekly guest stuff, right? I used to go on other people's streams a lot, and then I used to have people on my streams a lot. And I moved away from that because I was just kind of doing my own thing for a long time, is what it came down to. But I'm trying to do more guest stuff because I want to bring diversity and have more of a back and forth, right? I'm kind of tired of coming on here and just saying what I think. It's not really that good if none of you guys can really challenge me. I know you guys try to challenge me in the comments, but you're trying to challenge me versus having somebody on the call actually challenge me. It's not the same thing. But yeah, we want to have a lot of weekly guests moving forward. No, Delta's not a girl. He just LARPs as a girl on the internet, like half of CT. Interesting. All right, Livid. We'll have a chat. It's funny. I was a terrible speaker for a very, very long time, but some of these kind of things have helped me a lot with public speaking. I think I'm a decent public speaker now just because of all these streams and different things I've done over the years. You come out, you say something, you misspeak, you say something wrong, and then all of a sudden it desensitizes you to doing that. If I misspeak, I don't give a fuck anymore, Ask Delta about his J comment. I thought he went a little too far with that one, my friends. I would never have said that, but to each their own. I did laugh at it nonetheless. Decently articulate, just autistic. Nice, brother. Just like me. How much defines if you're in the middle of your journey? Like how you would define middle, end of your journey or whatever. None of you guys should ever view yourself as being at the end of your journey. If you're on year 1, then you're in the first segment of your trading career. If you're in like year 2 to 4, that's like kind of the middle arc. Once you're on like 5 and beyond, you can start saying that you're in like maybe like the later stages of your arc. But we all move at different paces in life. So just slapping a time signature on it to tell you where you're at doesn't make sense because some of you will move faster than others. Some of you guys will make a lot of progress in a year and others won't. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Having, really quickly, success in trading should take so much longer than what you guys have been told from social media, right? Trading Goober XYZ tells you, oh yeah, I traded for a year and then I was profitable. Like, yeah, my fucking ass, honestly. Like, unless you're a goddamn savant and you were born to do this, which is 0.0001% of us, it's going to be it's not even like you just... People describe it like, oh, it just clicked for me one day. I was in my timeline. It just clicked for me one day, and then from then on, I just made money. And that's not how it's going to look. You're going to have a moment where it's like, holy fuck, I'm good. Oh, I'm retard, I'm bad. Oh, I'm good, I'm bad. That's what it's going to look like. Your real life, your P&L hopefully should be smoothed out so it doesn't have these crazy arcs, but your mental health will be like this, where you'll think like, I'm a god, I'm the worst, and so on and so forth. But don't have expectations that these things are going to happen overnight for you, right? We all want things fast, but that's just not how life works. The tortoise always wins the race. Thanks for the stream. No problem, Ray Rain. Motherfuckers be chatting in here. I'm at the stage where I am really proficient at one setup. Learning Doc's lower time frame for scalping is my bread and butter for intraday and swings. Honestly, fucking love to hear that. I don't even care, right, if it's like, you know, it's a win either way, whether you're learning my stuff or you're learning Doc's. It's a huge W for us either way. Later, Liquidated. I want to use your real name, but I don't know if you're comfortable with that. We're all challenged, mentally challenged, correct. I'd say I'm more of a beginner than the middle, so I'll need some time to prep for the interview. We debated Livid into thinking he's actually coming on the stream, boys. We got him. No, we'll have a little chat. I needed to respond to you with what you asked me recently anyway, so we'll have a little chat. I've learned about your channel because of XO mentioned you as one of the great traders. Very, very kind of XO to say that. Whenever I search for any good trading content on YouTube, I only get people that don't even give trading advice. Yeah, I'm sorry that that's the case. That is one of the main reasons why I started this YouTube stuff, is because when you go on YouTube, the information you have access to makes you want to, you know, say things you're not supposed to say, right? It makes you, you know, it frustrates you, right? Because it's just basically people that are using their YouTube audiences to dump illiquid shitcoins on them. It's truly a tragedy. But yeah, that's why I made this, is because there's so much filth on YouTube. I wanted to try to be one of the one of the few channels that actually passed on a little bit of fucking usefulness to everybody, some value. Delta's a liar. He's not a girl. Confirmed. I need all you guys. He has like a fucking pretty deep voice too. I need all you guys when he comes on stream. I need all you guys to spam him that he's not a girl. So far, hard to find legit info. Thank you, brother. Want to provide value, not waste your time. Yeah, I fucking, one of my many scam accounts got your ass. It's actually really, really sad that I can't stop that stuff, but it is what it is. Did you use prop firms in your journey? Negative. I got mentored by prop traders. That helped me an enormous amount. Specifically my friend Sting, who is still to this day one of my really good friends, one of my good real life friends. Like, I met him on the internet, and we now hang out in real life regularly. He helped me a lot in my early days. He was very, very organized and professional because he had a lot more experience than me as being a prop trader. So even though I never traded prop myself, I got to experience those environments through my friends. And it was not even that uncommon that I don't talk about this that much because I don't know how much I was supposed to say, but I got to sit on the trading floors in voice chats with the prop firms. So I have never actually traded prop myself, but I have been very fortunate because of my friendships to get a great, inside look into what that looks like. Which basically it's just a bunch of nerds PvPing. Like, it's not really any different than what you see on Twitter. The difference is that they're just maybe a little more professional and organized. It's the only real difference. XRP is the future. You fucking know it, man. It's in my portfolio, so it better be the future. It's going down the least out of all the coins I own, so it's clearly the future. May 2023 now, a couple of hours every day consistently. You asked me money last week. Oh, yeah. I fucking rugged Livid. So here, Livid, I got some more KOL alpha for you. You make fake accounts for your real account, and then you reach out to people, and then you scam them from the fake account, and then you just say, oh, I'm sorry, bro, that was a fake account, that wasn't me. Boom. Fucking pulling in billions of dollars off of that. I'm obviously joking. Please don't, don't get carried away. I just thought it was a good joke. It's sad that I have to make those kind of follow-ups because I'm genuinely scared about people thinking that things I say are serious. So yeah. Just join Paragon. Love to hear it, bro. I'm pretty sure you were actually the guy that you had issues signing up today, which is why Charlie was working on that. I don't know why WAP just decided to change a fucking terms of service thing with us, and our WAPs just stopped working for like an hour today. But glad to hear that you got in, brother. Glad to hear it. It's always really frustrating for me when that stuff stops working. Mostly because I'm not the one to fix it. So I just had to sit there and wait for Charlie to fix it. Lots of learning from much more successful traders for sure. Yeah, I mean, you know, one more layer of detail to that, right? That like my friend that mentored me got mentored by one of the best traders that I've ever met in my life. The speed at which this guy was able to come into trading, understand it, and start making money and be the most profitable guy at their prop shop was, I had never seen anything like it. So I got indirectly mentored by him, which is cool. Sounds like trading is somewhat similar to arc to gym, guitar, etc. in terms of timeline. Yeah, I mean, insert any sort of thing like sport, game, even social things can probably be mapped out similarly to how your kind of arc plays out in terms of, you know, the like larger timeline. Give me an account size and certain time frame for 6 months example. I'll come back with results and we can review. If you had the balls to be that open and honest about it, then that could be an insanely educational and valuable thing to talk about. But it would be uncomfortable for you, potentially, because you'd have to be really honest about your mistakes, too. If you had the balls to do that in front of other people, that would be pretty respectable, to be honest. Very, very difficult to do that, guys. I try to be as open and honest about my stuff as I can, but even for me, there's sometimes where it's just like I made the mistake and I don't really want to go and talk about it right now. I'm mad enough at myself for having made that mistake. Last thing I want to do is go fucking write a big, you know, post on it, you know, in the group and whatever. And I'm just, you know, mad at myself in those moments more than anything. So even I do the same thing where I kind of shy away from facing some of the things sometimes because it's just so fucking tiresome to do it over and over again. I bought Delta's OnlyFans. What the fuck? Damn, you got rugged hard, dude. What was on there? Was it anime titties at least? I mean, hearing from what you have had your times when you lost half of your net worth, but looking at someone like Charlie and CBS where they never really blown an account kind of puts pressure on you. Well, I mean, I'm sure the Charlie and CBS, I mean, I'm friends with both of them. I'm sure that neither of them have never not lost a lot of money. Both of them have there's could be no, like, there's no realm of reality where neither of them have never had a big loss. There's a difference between losing half your money and losing a lot of money. Those aren't the same thing. But every trader ever has had a lot of, you know, has had that one loss where it was like, holy fuck, that was too much. If you haven't had that experience yet, it means sadly you're going to, because those are the most important moments where you learn to protect yourself when you lose too much. Thank you, Finn. I mean real prop, Alan. Not fake simulated ones. That was definitely real prop that I got to experience real prop basically at like the later stages before real prop stopped really existing. I'm not asked to shill, but I want to. That is very, very kind of you, Jake. Please DM me your address in my DMs and I will pay you your 3 Bitcoin for that shill. If you wanted some real spice, join Paragon Maga streams every Friday for the group. I joined in November. Totally worth it. Really appreciate it, bro. Really appreciate it. Every time somebody gives me that kind of feedback, it's like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. I don't, you know, I tweeted this earlier. I don't think that people really appreciated this kind of a tweet either. I saw another account share this a while ago. I bookmarked it and then I shared it again myself. But basically the like kind of you can, you know, read the whole thing. I'll even throw it in the chat really quickly if you guys are interested in this. But the last thing is what really spoke to me, right? Like, all those with sincerity will question their sincerity until death. That's how I kind of know I'm a good person most of the time, because I always am wondering if what I'm doing is the right thing. So when I read that quote, it resonated with me so much, because it's like, oh, that's that insecurity about whether I'm doing the right thing or the wrong thing is how I know that I'm more likely to be doing the correct thing, because I'm so concerned about it. I'm not gonna lie, this KOL advice can make you some real money. Are we about to do a KOL paid group? I'm just having some fun with it. You know, I've watched the KOL game for years, and I've always chosen to not play it. But you can't help but pick things up and see it, because it's just so prevalent in our space. Send it to the SEC. Thoughts on Pendle? I didn't like Pendle as much recently. I traded Pendle a lot at the beginning of last year. Yeah, let's see. Pendle just looks like piss compared to other, like the other two leading RWAs are Ondo, which looks better, and OM, which looks a lot better. I don't know where OM falls in the market cap compared. OM's probably smaller market cap than Pendle, but if I'm looking for an RWA coin, I want the strongest one, which is why I'm in OM. I would not buy Pendle, probably. As somebody, let me read the rest of your question. Bought the dip at $2.40, and you are trying to take it to $7. I just don't like that this one's relatively weak structured, but oh, you're chilling though. You got a good entry. My one thing is I would say don't hold on to it for too long, because you are doing like a bearish backside retest, which to me means if you want to take it to $7, which is the range highs, I think this is a terrible bet to bet on it going this high. You should either front run this zone where you expect it to come up much shorter, or it's going to go much further. This is too obvious of a zone to target, and you will get front run on this. I would put my neck out and say you will get front run on this. So I would say be aggressive about profit taking higher. But if you're swinging for $7, which I think is what you said, this is terrible EV to bet on it going this high, right? I'm telling you, it will either front run it or it will go so much further. Either way, $7 is not going to work for you, in my opinion. Charlie's playing CS Bro. He's live on Twitch. We're on, Charlie and I are on our gamer arc right now. I've been posting the gamer content and stuff for fun. Yeah, I'll probably stream some Counter-Strike as well at some point. We praise Glimmery. Yeah, for those of you guys that have been around a long time, Glimmery Coin is the guy that taught Sting and thus indirectly taught me. All right, Livid, we'll have a chat. I see I got to go through my DMs and stuff when I turn the stream off. Can you talk about how hard it is to teach then? Like, if you were mentored by a true genius and you're great but not as good, do we all have a chance? Every person, like, you got a smart guy and you got a guy and then a guy it just diminishes. The value of the education just diminishes every time is what you're saying. I don't really think that's necessarily true. I think that's a funny point to make, and it makes sense that it could be the case, but it's not, because mostly what I teach you guys is not things that I was taught. The significant majority of what I teach is what my experiences have been. A huge part of what I got from those guys was about mindset, and about organization and, you know, that kind of stuff. Thinking outside the box with things. A lot of the like technical explanations I give you, specifically with like all the order flow stuff, that's not secondhand. Sure, obviously I didn't learn what delta is on my own, right? But like how to use delta and then all like the extra layers of something like that, I didn't learn that stuff from anybody else. I'm not saying that to take away from anybody, but like Sting, for example, that's not what his emphasis was teaching me. He was teaching me how to be a professional trader, from an organization, a systemization, and professional mindset, right? Actually having the discipline to stay on top of everything and to review things properly, and et cetera, et cetera. How did you manage to trade alongside your 9 to 5? How did you keep your fresh mindset, not feeling completely exhausted in the evenings? Well, it's not like I was over there gambling on the perps, every day. So I would say first of all, you need to be slightly higher time frame, right? If you have less time to trade, that means that you can't be the guy that's over there scalping on your fucking phone or whatever at work, right? You need to have a slightly higher time frame. Focus on a lot of spot trades, right? Mostly use derivatives to defend yourself, not to increase your risk and to make more, right? Using derivatives to defend yourself is actually the best use case, and one of the use cases that anybody that goes on TV and says, oh, shorting should be illegal, like those people don't fucking understand markets, right? Like I short more to not lose money than I ever do to make money. So TLDR, trade higher time frame. Focus on spot. And pray. Be getting the Magus Twitch stream after this? I might, but I'm going to take a break. CT feels better than ever. I'm not, yeah, it's hard to quantify these things. I don't know. XRP Magnus is my favorite KOL. I'll take that to heart, Sebastian. Thank you. No problem, brother. No problem. 2 hours and 30 seconds. Yeah, this is probably my longest stream of all time. 2 hours and 36 minutes. About to fucking die over here in game. You should write a book. I've had a couple different people tell me to do that. Maybe one day. Some CS gameplay in the background. We'll probably do a Counter-Strike stream later today. But I'm gonna chill for a bit first. Shorting is illegal in China. What's your alt on Twitter? I never made the alt on Twitter. I'll share it with all you guys whenever I make it. Don't worry. You guys aren't gonna get locked out. The fuck is Bitcoin OI doing? Yeah. It's doing something. It's like CZ's getting ready to pump this to infinity. Write a sci-fi novel. I'm not clever enough for that, bro. That would be so fucking cool to be able to write a Star Wars, write a Dune, write a Lord of the Rings, a Harry Potter. How fucking cool would that be? But I do not possess that kind of skill set. What do you think of a toss platform? Fucking fantastic, honestly, bro. I was about to say you could see it at the bottom here, but you can't because I removed the icon. But I've used a toss for a long time. I don't use it that much these days because I don't need it, but a toss is probably my go-to nerdy order flow platform right now. And it's free, so we love that for you guys. Split screen content, CS on the bottom, market analysis on the upper. Do it, please. If you want to see me be wrong, if you want to see me play Counter-Strike terribly and then give you bad analysis, I could do both. For Counter-Strike, guys, I can only play CS. I can't do anything else or I'm going to be terrible. It just requires that much attention. He just says Binance whales are bidding here. Yeah, well, that guy says whatever the fuck he wants to say, so I would take everything he says with a grain of salt. Feel bad saying that because he was nice to me early on and shouted me out, but at the end of the day, when we want to make claims, guys, about what's happening or what's not happening, it needs to be founded in reason and logic, not just because this sounds fucking cool for the sake of posting on Twitter. I think I was trying to ask about what can't be taught and how important that is stuff, evidently. That's okay. Sorry, I misunderstood. What cannot be taught is the instincts can't be taught, right? They have to be acquired through experience, right? The ability to handle wins and losses cannot be taught. I've experienced this so many times over where I have told people, this is what's happening, this and that, and then this and then that. And then they will go, nah, I'm gonna do my thing. And then a month later, they come back and say, oh yeah, this, that, and this and that happened. What do I do now? really hard for me to like push forward after that happens. You know, that's mostly with like people like real life friends or whatever where I'm trying to help them. So a lot of the little nuances and details cannot be passed forward because a man learns best when he gets burned. The pain is the main thing that's going to fucking teach you something. If Glim was a super genius, I'm not taking anything away from him. I don't know what a super genius definition is, so I'm not like trying to label that. We're all different people, right? So like if Glim teaches Sting and Sting teaches me, it's not like there's a rule like law of diminishing returns with that stuff. We're all very different people. Sting and I are wired very similarly with our minds, and I don't think Glimmery is. I think Glimmery was just out there on his own because he was such an outside the box thinker. But to be a genius, right? It's a futile effort, right? Anybody that goes around and calls themselves a genius or thinks of themselves as a genius is the furthest fucking thing from it. If you want to have a chance at being a genius, you got to call yourself a retard. Free alpha, you're welcome. I'm not even joking. Do you ever start dreaming charts? I'm at that stage right now. Not really dreaming charts per se, but definitely dreaming P&L. I definitely have dreamed red P&L a few different times. That's woken me up. That wasn't real. Like price didn't move at all, and I woke up thinking I was dying. Write your trading journey in a sci-fi way. I just don't think I'm smart enough to do that. I like the idea of doing things in gaming terms because that's easy for me. Can you stream Marvel Rivals, please? You guys really want to watch me play Marvel? What do you use for Trading View? Only Trading View? I use Trading View. I use Trading Light. I use Insilico Terminal. That's pretty much it. Can you be my mentor? Yes, for 40 Bitcoin. Yeah, Lucifer, you've been selected to be the next stream guest, by the way. So I need you to come on here and say the most retardio things you can imagine. If I believe I'm super genius hard enough, I can manifest it, right? Yeah, 100%. What do you tell people that say trading brings no value to society? If somebody said that to me, I would immediately ask them, okay, well, what do you do for a living, right? And the reality is that most people's jobs don't fucking do anything for the world, so tell that person to go fuck themselves is what I would probably do, honestly. That's a really disrespectful way. If somebody was to say that to you, that's kind of disrespectful. Even though it's true, they can go fuck themselves, is what my response would be, honestly. Yeah, my trading brings no value to any part of the world other than the fact that I do help facilitate making the markets work by buying and selling. I try to provide a value to the world with things like this right here, where I try to tell you guys how to be less retarded with trading and try to tell you guys about some of the like psychological and mental mindset stuff that I've learned from the years of trading. So that's how I return the value to the, this stream right here. I get nothing from doing it. Technically, I probably get like $3 from Woo, but it's not like really worth my time from a financial standpoint. I do this because this is my version of providing value, returning back to the world, right? I got really lucky in life in a lot of ways, so it almost makes sense to me that I need to, pay it forward to you guys. Red P&L dreams are so scary. Do you use Insilico Dom for scalping? Can it give us an edge? Not really, bro. Mostly the Dom is just for order execution. It's just an easy way for me to get limit orders in the book. The way that crypto moves, with Bitcoin, maybe you could probably get an edge with Bitcoin on a Dom, I would say. But all the other altcoins and stuff are going to be so illiquid that they're going to, like, when you load up your Dom, I'm not going to draw it out fully, but you load up your Dom and your price point's here. This thing is going to fucking do this, right? Because it's an liquid altcoin. So if price is moving like this, it's very, very difficult for you to read that information. So because the tick size is too small in altcoins and they're too illiquid. So I would argue that DOMs are not going to give you an analysis edge very often. They will give you an execution edge, but not analysis. You make so much money. Trading that you buy their business and fire them. That would be the ultimate fucking spite move. It's like when Larry David in Curb Your Enthusiasm opens up the Spite coffee shop next to Mocha Joe. Like that shit. That's so fucking funny. I love Larry David shit. I'm gonna start a business just to annoy your business. It's true, but something I wonder to myself is I would like to provide value to the world. There's lots of ways to provide value to the world, man. You could go and open the door for somebody at a restaurant, and that was you doing a good thing, right? When you see somebody fall in the street and you walk over and help them get up, or you help an old lady cross the road or whatever, right? The perceptions of helping the world or whatever, I mean, you don't need to be fucking a billionaire that's giving money away to help people. Just literally just going around and being a good person is you contributing to the world in my eyes, right? A lot, and not enough people emphasize that. Way too many people are selfish. They go around in life only thinking of themselves. If you can stop and be present in the moment when you're out in public and ask some, do you need help with that or whatever? That's you being a good person. That's you contributing to the world. I always go out of my way with any food service or any of these like shitty jobs. Basically, whenever I interact with any of these people, I go out of my way to be a little bit extra nice to them. So I would urge all you guys to do that. You don't need to be a fucking cringe, about it or whatever, but just go be a real person. My guy did math on the Bitcoin. I respect it. Now, for those of you guys that don't know, 40 Bitcoin is a meme from Nomad. It's a joke from the OG days of Twitter. What do you think about Silico and his style of trading? What style of trading, I mean, I've known him for a long time, and I don't have, I've never. I'm wondering how I should strategically structure this sentence to not be a total dick about it, but I mean, yeah, I'm not super confident that he's trading. There you go. I think Insilico did a great job of teaching a lot of people in our space things. That's the thing that he offered people, is that he provided education to some people that wanted it. And that's great. Can you give us an example of how Glimmery thought outside the box? I don't want to talk about that because what comes to mind is very, very specific examples, and it's not my place to say that stuff about other people, right? When I'm talking about my trading or my setups or whatever, it's my right to say what I want to say because it's mine. But it's not my place to share what he was thinking or what he was doing. So out of respect, I won't do that. I'm sorry. So Paragon Group offered trade signals and alerts. So look, guys, it's one of the $1 million questions right there. Do we offer straight up signals? No. I don't believe in just giving you the fish, right? I want to teach you how to teach yourself how to fish. Not even teach you how to fish. I want to teach you to teach yourself. So all of our plans are always shared ahead of time. And yes, sometimes I'll go, hey, add everybody. I just fucking hedged because I'm really worried about this right now, right? I will do pseudo calls sometimes when I think things are really important. But most of the time, I lay my plans out ahead of time, and then I let you guys make the decisions yourself. Only at the moments when I'm honestly, going risk off is one of the main reasons why I tell people to change their positioning, because I want you guys to not lose money. So, do we make calls like your fucking stereotypical group? No, we're not. I'm not telling you to put your stop loss at $6. I want you guys to do things your own. Bro, if I'm on a CoffeeZilla episode, first of all, I think CoffeeZilla is super fucking annoying. But if I was ever on a CoffeeZilla episode, that's how you know the world went to shit. True value. Yeah, I never am trying to shill the copy trading element behind it, right? I'm trying to promote the education and that you guys can come in and learn how to do things on your own. That's always what I'm going to push for with the Paragon. I'm not paid by I'm not paid by Magus, but he's paid by Magus. So I definitely paid Livid to come in here in the chat today for sure. Thank you, Cryptoski. Okay, so the show that Livid just said is the main thing I've always said. I can never guarantee that any of you guys are going to be able to make money. Because if I guarantee that, I'm a fucking lying piece of shit, right? But what I can guarantee is you will learn faster with us than on your own or probably anywhere else. That's the one guarantee that I can actually offer you. Because learning is hard out on your own. And I've condensed everything down so you don't need to go and look at 75 different YouTube channels and listen to 6 hours of this macro podcast or whatever. It's there, ready to go. Do you believe anyone can make it with trading? Not necessarily making millions, but a little boost in complementary income. Can everybody make it as a actual trader? Probably not, bro. If we're being honest, right? Can everybody have a chance of making a little bit of money from crypto? Yes. Yes, you can. I think everybody, if you're patient enough, and if you're basically the main primary factor is, are you patient enough? If you are patient enough, then yes, you should be able to make money from crypto on a long enough time horizon. In silico terminal is what we're talking about, brother. When people say in silico, that's a person. I don't know him as that name. I know him as Trip because I've known him for a while. But he's a good example of like a really, really high functioning autistic person that you can learn a lot from. But you gotta be really careful and take him with a grain of salt because he's just he's a very strong personality is the way to put it, right? Very, very strong personality. I've had trouble getting along with him in the past for that reason. I'll add it's not just the learning, it's the logic and mindset, always contextualizing things. Thank you, Jake. We're actually bottoming here. Would I bet on this being the bottom? No. I don't have anything in front of me that tells me that this is the bottom. I don't have any information to liquidity right now, which would be a big role for me. Or that would play a big role in betting if this is the bottom or not, but could it be the bottom? For sure. Will I bet on it? No. What would make me more likely to bet on it being the bottom is if this went for a while, or we just rounded out for a while, especially if we had a couple of drives down that got bought back up, a couple of wicks, and just kind of build out a range here. The longer we do this, the more likely we are to start to round back up. So I would not buy this, but if I saw it drive down, maybe I would later. But you'd be talking about a couple hours down the line probably before I would position that. Livy, let's just start with DM for now because I just got too much shit to do right now. But we can definitely we'll have a chat, bro. What up, Mortiz? Will you teach your kids to trade? There's levels to it, right? Like, am I gonna incentivize them? Like, hey guys, I think you should go fucking scalp the 1 second chart on Bitcoin. Like, I'm obviously not gonna tell them to do that. But I'm gonna teach financial literacy to my kids 100%. Teach them the essentials, right? And then if they want, right, I'll never be the kind of dad that tries to push my kids into something. Just because I want you to be a pro gamer doesn't mean I'm going to push you into that, right? So just like the same thing, I will make sure that they understand the pure basics of financial literacy, and then from there I will make that I'll let them make the decisions if they want to learn stuff beyond that. What do you think is GCR's edge? I mean, I couldn't answer that, bro. I mean, if I knew his edge, then it wouldn't be an edge anymore because I would have used it up and probably taught it to people and made it degrade even further. So, I don't know, man. Teach them to be the best KOL. Your edge is unique to you, in my opinion. I agree. I mean, we can have some overlapping things where it's like we all look, you know, a lot of us look at this thing or that thing for a little confluence or whatever. But yeah, ultimately, like the edge, he's got to be you. It's all got to be you, right? Because most of trading comes down to discipline and how you handle the psychological side of fucking up. Teach them to hedge everything 100%. You need to go take a... Oh, you need to go pee right now? Well, make sure you sit down in case you need to take a shit. Hedge everything. Solid cred tweet. All right, guys. So I caught up with the chatters. I'm going to pop out and the stream here. I would love to kind of continue to chat with you guys, but I can't do it. We're almost 3 hours into the stream. I got to go. So I'm gonna call the stream there. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Hopefully you guys learned something. We're going to be doing a lot more guest streams and what have you in the future. All right, so that's it for me. Shout out to Woo Exchange for sponsoring these streams. Appreciate them.